I call the Monday, June 29th, 2026 workshop meeting agenda for the select board to order. And then we talk about which ones we have to carry over to the next year and which ones. But informal, open discussion.
Okay.
I'm happy to lead it, but I think we all can jump in and lead this thing, but. Joe, do you want to go over sort of? What, I know you're eating there, sorry, but
Nope.
all right, I can go through it, but I mean, we have the handouts here, right? I don't know if everybody got it now, but.
I think we provided ahead of time what last year's kind of goals were and kind of shows you how we use that spreadsheet. So I updated the spreadsheet, took out some of the fill-in stuff, left the major categories and then added in new major categories based on recommendations that members had sent me over the course of the last week or so. So we can go through the spreadsheet if you like, fill in, the tasks, timeline, measure success areas. You can be a little more informal. It's really up to you. It's all, this meeting is always meant to be an open discussion, sharing of ideas and stuff. So it's,
We'll start with last year's and then we'll kind of take which ones we sort of give us like, start with the good stuff and then cross off the ones we take care of and then we go to the new stuff.
And from a process standpoint, I remember it was sort of like, we went around, we had the workshop and then like, we spent a little bit of the next several meetings kind of.
Right.
Rounding it out and making sure that tasks and everything were aligned.
Right, we whiteboarded everything
Yeah.
and then we try to group some things together.
Right.
Because there's some things like someone would say like sidewalk up here, someone they streets down here, so we'd say, okay, combine these two things and then we'd rate them, like, okay, this is a 1, this is a 2, this is a 3.
Right.
That's kind of what we did.
When we came back, so like a couple meetings later, then sort of saying, okay, we've ranked, prioritized, these are our goals for this year. But there would be a couple other deliberations that will just all, but definitely get big ideas out.
I think it's big ideas, and I think also there's two things we're doing here, right? One is what are the big ideas for the town? We want to make sure we focus on. But the second part of that is we're gonna evaluate Joe now on these things we give him to do. So you have to think about that too.
not tonight, later in the year.
So they have to be measurable to some, you have to give him a goal. You can't just say water, it has to be like, what with water?
Yeah.
That he can do with it, he can accomplish it, like not build us a new well, and that's not gonna happen, but plan or process or have meetings or build consensus, whatever it is, right? So we'll start with water. Water's always on our goals. And you've been part of that North Shore task force.
Mhm.
So are there any measurable things in the next year other than just ongoing? Like, is there anything we're trying to accomplish a goal next year other than just continued communication and making plans and looking at what the calendar looks like, what the budget looks like, and what the state's going up?
Trying to swallow here. Yes, the task force has led to a lot of good conversations. We spent the last few years talking about options and things that might be good for the region as a whole in Hamilton as part of the region. Things to keep in mind when we talk about water in Hamilton is that Hamilton, the Ipswich River watershed is kind of a challenged watershed. All right, it's not that Hamilton's done anything wrong. In fact, in a lot of ways, we're in better shape than a lot of our neighbors. We have, between our registered use and our permitted use, we have a lot more capacity than we do actually water to take out of the river. And the times of the year when the river is most stressed at summertime are the times when we have the most trouble. But we're still always well under what we're actually allowed to take out of the water, out of the watershed, in terms of daily, weekly basis. So we have the ability to bring more water out for usage than we do. But because the condition of the river, we're happy to stay within those drought regulations and not try and pull more. Also, with most of our neighbors are having more trouble with PFAS. We've already corrected that. You'll remember that we were trying to solve for TTHMs, and then that solution wound up being a solution that was also going to be good for PFAS, and it has worked out that way. So we've got the PFAS treatment already attached to the site. So we're already pulling, we're at non-detect levels for PFAS in the Hamilton town water. That doesn't speak to people who are still on wells, but anybody who's on town water, we're at non-detect levels in PFAS, which we're already meeting the new EPA regulations. So that's all good news. long-term, if you want to be able to grow, you want to be able to have another, you need to be able to have another water source. What's that look like? Who's that going to be? It's, we can't make there be more water in the watershed in the Ipswich River. So our only alternative, if the town wants to have the ability to grow in the future, and that's for anything, for commercial, anything, you're going to need to have another water source. So that's what task force has been looking at, is how do we make water a more resilient resource in the North Shore area here in the lower Ipswich River Basin in particular. We have almost $1.1 million government grant from the federal government to help us establish a better interconnection with the town of Wenham. We just got notified that that grant is going to be accessible soon, so we'll be meeting with our EPA project manager and getting the project started for that. At the same time, Wenham is working on a solution to solve its PFAS issues, because they don't have a water treatment plant. They just pump their water as it is, and we have a much more built up system. One of the solutions is, the estimate right now is that on the order of $12 million for Wenham to build its own water treatment plant that would also treat for PFAS. But the estimates are that it could be as little as $8 million if they pumped their water to Hamilton and we pump to them back clean water. They run their, in other words, run their water for our plant, and our plant has that capacity. So that's something that's very much in the early stages. Just say, hey, could Wenham save some money for its ratepayers? And at the same time, Hamilton and Wenham could show the region that it is possible to partner on water and find a solution that's better for everybody. That won't give us more water, but it will help kind of set the table for regionalization going forward, we think. At least from talking to the folks that we've been talking to, it seems like a promising way to look at it. But a lot of miles and steps to be taken between now and then. I definitely think adding a goal for this year of moving the dial towards a better interconnection between Hamilton and Wenham with the grant money we have, with the grant money that Wenham has in their needs. I think that should be a goal for us this year, is to try and get to that, to the point, make a decision. Are we gonna connect and help them with their water? Do they want us to? And either way, we need to improve the interconnection, because even if the future is MWRA or Salem Beverly Water, we still need to have a better interconnection with Wenham for that anyway. So that's what we've got the grant money to do. I think that should be a goal for us this year. Got the engineer in place, we've started the design on the project, we've got money to start the work. That should be one of our goals, get us closer to that.
So let me just break it down. We can kind of talk about each around the room. So we got a multi-pronged water, attack right in this town, right? So we have distribution systems, which we have a plan for, and we're in pretty good shape. So that sort of goal is sort of not really a goal because it's already in place, right? Then we have generation system, which you just talked about. We're sort of ahead of that right now than what we have, what we deal with. And Tim does a good job of communicating. That's when he needs to upgrade filters or things like that. So I'm not sure there's any sort of 5-10 year plan on distribution or generation we should look at. Second water source we just talked about, and I think the baby step to that is the Wenham connection. But I think we still want to big picture, do we want to talk about for the next year, identify three options for secondary water source and what that cost and schedule looks like. Let's just, whether we have to hire a consultant or whether we just work with your committees. But I think besides that, we need to sort of understand as a town, what are, is it top 2, top 3, I don't know how many it is, but we should at least have some ideas of the plan.
Well, that's
Is it
something
5, 10?
should be identifying, or is that something that's gonna come out of the committee?
Well, I don't know, they're
No,
looking at all
yeah,
that stuff.
Or is
task-
it sort of like?
Task force is looking at how to get all of us to work together, and what is the most, fiscally responsible way to get that to happen. Because obviously the state and federal government don't want to spend millions of dollars in each town. They're gonna have to spend millions of dollars up here at some way, shape, or form. And at some point in the future, that is gonna come back on our ratepayers. There's no way around it. The federal government, state government isn't gonna pay for all of it. We're trying to get as much help from them as possible by showing them a bigger return on their investment. That's the 10-year plan. That's the stuff that we're working on at the task force. Here, I think Bill's right. There are things, we still have needs in improving our distribution system. The pipes in the ground, some of the pipes in the ground were laid in the 1940s and 50s. They need to be upgraded. They need to be changed. They need to be swapped out and modernized. The same goes for the water tank in the top of the Browns Hill. That tank is 50 years old at least. 80 years old. Okay. Ben's done his homework.
Right.
I'm sure Chris would have known the same thing. I'm sure Chris would have known the same thing. So, 80 years old, we've known for a number of years that it needs to be upgraded. We've been trying to wait and see what was coming from this task force partnership, but we have to, it's on the list of things that has to be done for capital infrastructure. We just need to identify where we want to address it. Whether we merge with somebody else or not, we're gonna need a water tank. You always need a water tank for pressure. So we have to figure out where you want that on the list of priorities. That's a potentially $5 to $7 million project, so.
That was, and I think that covered the tank plus some distribution was in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
$7 million project. Calling from when we did the rate discussion, back in the
Right.
spring, winter. We've changed over about 40% of our distribution lines so far, so we've got 60% to go. So that first project was gonna be the tanks and a portion of the distribution. But they're gonna, by the sounds of it, as they're kind of working through engineering design and cost estimating, it's kind of cut the cloth to suit in terms of how much distribution you can get for the amount that we're forecasting to be able to potentially bond, right? So. But I think from a goal standpoint, what would make sense is to have. You know, the tanks, upgrades, the near-term distribution, and then kind of, okay, how do we get to 100%, right? Because if we're,
Right.
and what does that look like as a, 5 to 7 year plan, so that way. In 10 years' time, we have. Some people won't be new, it'll be.
Right, I think we- right, I think, right.
100 years.
We need to have a holistic water plan, not just like. Not just
Yeah.
the second water source, because people say, well, we have a second water source, but then once you get to Hamilton, what are our challenges here? So it needs to be a holistic plan that. That sort of summarizes all the issues along the systems.
Because the regional task force stuff, like, will potentially at some future point in time bring in new sources, right? In addition to the sources of the Ipswich watershed, so there's
Right.
sources, right, which is gonna be. Like, determined at some other future point in time versus our. Like, kind of treatment and pumping system, like our main treatment and pumping system. Then there's storage and distribution. So. Like, segmenting it into those categories, right, I think makes
Yeah,
sense
I
as
think it
well,
does.
like, so that way you have. Okay, there's a goal for the long range sources question, and then there's goals for. Like, filtration and pumping, and that was where Wen would tie into that piece of it. And there's our own distribution and upgrades. I think there's also a goal in there too around maintenance, regimes, just like making sure that all of that kind of, I asked him, I was like, hey, are we exercising the valves?
Yeah.
Right, and so, like, I don't know when last time we exercised those interconnect valves are, I'd say. Probably want to do it a couple times a year, right? And it's like, you probably want to have a valve on hand for that first time that you do try to exercise it, because it might not go so well, right? So. We don't want to have these, kind of like failure points either, so I think there's, which is, I get it, and I'm not like. Being disparaging at all, just sort of making sure that those kind of continuous maintenance activities are also happening. So I would tie that, and that, I don't know if it belongs in water or not, maybe that belongs in a different bucket. No pun intended.
I think it's all those are valid things. Yeah, I mean, like we have, like that, you have sourcing, distribution, generation and storage, which is all pressurization, right? And then. We've got, we've talked about our rates, so we sort of have a plan on rates, but what's our bigger plan? I think we need to have a more of a plan of like, okay. We don't even know right now when's next time we're gonna review the rates. It's gonna be a year, it's gonna be 2 years, it's gonna be 3 years, but.
We've been trying to do it, we've been trying to review the rates with you every year, but
Every
not
year.
ask for an increase every
Every
year.
year,
So I think, pending feedback from the board or FinCom or somebody else, we'd like to keep reviewing them every year.
right?
Keep abreast of it. Some people would say, oh, it makes sense to make minor adjustments every year. But if you have a year where you're kind of tracking and you can kind of take it easy on people, that might not be a bad thing either. Everything.
Well, it's not, right, it's not bad to even review it every year, and if you say,
Right.
hey, good news, we're not reviewing, but then we
Right.
get credit for not.
Not raising the.
We don't wanna like, we're not always giving bad news, but sometimes it's good to give good news too, right?
Right.
So. And then I might have a question on I mean, I know we've gone through it, 'cause we've had the meetings, but with the metering and the leakage, right? And we only hear about it after it's happened, right? With these, like the pool, they'll get drained 20 times and refills, right? But I'm not sure there's any sort of common sense goal to like come up with, like, do we know what our leakage is right now in the system? Besides besides the 60 or 40% of the pipes haven't been replaced, but does Tim track like what he thinks our leakage is on a yearly basis?
So, for I and I, there is a kind of an estimate that the state makes you go through to look at what kind of percentage of water you're losing.
Okay,
And they want you to kind of ideally be in the 10 to 12% range. I think we're more like in the 13 to 15% range, but it's still really good compared to a lot of other towns. A lot of that is the upgrade of that 40% of the distribution network and then identifying where leaks are and repairing them as we go. So we do kind of track water loss on a regular basis as part of our annual reporting to the state. And we're trying to improve it. But some of it has to do with it, infrastructure, the big jobs. What you're talking about, like with the guy
There's two sets of leaks, right?
The
There's two types of
individuals,
leaks, right?
yeah, those are
Yeah.
one-offs you can't
Yeah.
control until they happen and then you have to fix them. And, but in the meantime, we do try to plan for, regular replacement of water main to try to avoid that loss.
But we don't have like, oh, the normal flow of our town is so many GPMs and all of a sudden one day it goes up to. Does he get an alarm and say, oh, there's gotta be some big, like, how does that?
I mean, it would have to be like super
Like
large,
okay.
you're talking, most
Like
of
a
it.
main go or
Yeah.
something like that.
I see your pressure drop of the pumps, and you couldn't keep up.
That would be a disaster.
It's not gonna register, like.
Yeah, even a big loss over the course of a week or so isn't gonna, in terms of things, isn't really a big loss on the daily pumping, so.
So one of the things in your goal for 25.6 was sort of the messaging about water to the community, right? So I think doing a summary of all the different systems and creating like a one-page sort of something we could send out would be good. Because I think that what I hear a lot of, nobody's complaining about this stuff. What people complain about is, I can't water my lawn, right? And we can't, why do we talk about future growth? We don't have enough water in our town anyway. So it'd be good to be able to message like what that actually means. I don't think that our water limitations growth in town for the minimal growth we're talking about, but that's what people start to say when they say, oh, we can't water our lawn, but yeah, we can build affordable housing or. So I just don't know how that works. So
Yeah,
it's
the
come
good
up
news-
with a message that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the good news about the task force is that part of the task force has been the Ipswich River Watershed Association. They have worked with the water providers, the water suppliers, which are all the town systems, to kind of come up with what that messaging should look like. And so we can start to work with them and try and put that stuff out. But again, a lot of that, it comes down to having the bandwidth to, create the message and amplify it. And we are hoping that very soon we'll be able to do that with our new communications approach and strategy. And that person will be involved in helping Tim and I get that message out. And I do think that we talked a little bit about and didn't follow through. I think we had a lot going on last year, not making excuses, just saying. But we do want to do another water meeting like we did in 2019, where we kind of, do a one night where we just kind of go through the whole of what the town's water infrastructure is, what its needs are, that we can foresee. Explain a little bit more in depth, and we'll try to get that, get Bill Melville and HWCAM to help us, amplify that, have the video shown.
I think it might be good to do this report and then have that meeting presented or to. Like,
Yeah.
not the final, but just I think it's good to do a little bit of background before the meeting, then get feedback. At least we're prepared for it.
And Ipswich watershed, that nonprofit, like they've got a ton of like data and benchmarks.
Yeah.
As well around like. Kind of like both uses and profiles, what people can expect based on. Number of people in the household versus, how much irrigation you're doing. Well, I went to one of those meetings last year. And yeah, they. Had all sorts of data as well, so I think it's. Giving people that understanding too, to your point around, well, how much capacity do we have, versus like kind of ask questions around like how much is leaking, like what's the waste, like, or where's the water go? Maybe they can help with that educational piece too, because they're a trusted source and they have data from a bunch of other communities across the state, that they're benchmarking. So I went back to water bills after that. They didn't have some bills, good, like a lot left over, but.
Well, I think the interesting about our water, right, is that we don't pay for our water, but we pay to distribute it, store it, pump it, filter it, right? We don't actually pay for the water.
Right.
So, and so it's a fixed cost.
Yeah.
The generating the water, so that if we use less water, our water bill is gonna go, the rate's gonna go up.
Right.
Right, so it's-
Looking at it anyway, so-
Now, obviously, we wanna be responsible with water,
Everybody's
not
supposed to,
wastewater, but on an economic scale, we've got the economists over here, but yeah, it's interesting game, but it's not about using less water, it's about being efficient with it, but.
And having,
yeah,
like, having
and
go to the
knowing
highest
real
and best
cost.
use as well, like if there's questions. Yeah. Well.
By using less water than save us money, get down. We have to run the-
Doesn't feel like the hour's working. I'm trying to get the hour working. Somebody else want to take the next topic while I try to get the hour working?
Um, the self-service, so we, yeah, the self-service, we had a plan in place to
Second.
add carriers and then develop another tower location. And I know that's what we're working on both. So I think this continues until we actually have the other tower up. And stays on the goal.
The planning board approved
Okay.
the second tower behind the public safety building.
Okay.
So I think that's well in the works. And then the smaller tower, I believe, has also been approved, so it's just a matter of getting it done at this point.
Where's the smaller tower going?
Right from the intersection, almost behind, on Walnut Road, behind that, the mall, the strip mall there, so it'll be there, it's just gonna be on a pole.
Yeah, the pole mounted.
Thing in the gym.
canister on top. And the pole's in now. so they-
Yeah.
Right, do we know the next steps or timeline on those polls now that the planning board has approved?
I have not heard any more than that, other than it has been approved.
Yeah, they did their balloon test right before the approval, so
They
it's,
did the balloon
yeah,
test.
that's what I said, they did the
Yes.
balloon test in order
Yeah, I
for the,
remember that,
for the pump, so.
You're
It's-
about like the telephone pole style ones, Tom, like, or the.
No, I think we're,
This is the
tower.
big.
I think we guys asking for the big one.
The big one, yeah.
I can get you all for the next meeting and get Mark Connors to give us an update on, reach out to Everest and find out what their next timeline is. Now that they've got their approvals are all in place, let us know who you're working with when they're starting, so.
So what's left to do on that project?
On our end, nothing, let them build it. Let them build it and start collecting the rent.
And then sell it.
Couple years down the road. Let it build up some capacity.
What about in carriers? I mean, we can't really promote or encourage that, but it just happens just.
Yeah, the tower owner is the one that has those relationships and
I
tries
would
to
think
bring
they'd
in.
want to put more carriers on the tower, but.
Yeah.
But they have been very slow by doing that. I'm not sure what the reason is, but.
I wonder if they're thinking to go to, more satellite technology. Cause I mean, and I'm not a huge fan of it here, I just switched to T-Mobile and I can switch up my Wi-Fi and go on to satellite, it's a little wonky, I'll say.
It's already wonky, Tom, so.
Yeah.
I can't order a Dunkin' Donuts iced tea from the parking lot. I have to come over here to this parking lot and pick up the Wi-Fi from the building and then go back and get my iced tea, so. It's a little wonky already.
Couldn't pay with our mobile devices on the block party, because there was no
No,
Wi-Fi.
not enough.
It was cash only, because no
Okay.
one's, cube is working, there's no Wi-Fi.
So the tower behind public safety will.
We'll help
Take
take
up
care
that
of
area.
it.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, they kind of always said when they built the first tower that I said that was probably gonna be needed. That they build the first one and see, and
Yeah.
almost as soon as it was up, the board started asking me to get them to build a second one and Everest dragged their feet, so now they're here, so.
And they tell you that it'll make everything better. It takes less traffic off of the other tower, so it makes that traffic go faster, so it's.
Yeah, but remember, we have two other towers in town, and we keep being told, oh, the next one will help, the next one. I hope the next one helps.
We'll keep that on there, right? Just
Well,
until,
that's what was my question was, is that something that could be kept on the, and is that something that needs work? from?
yeah, cause I think you need to, cause a couple things. One, you need to continue to press to make sure they get it done. And secondly, we found out last time that we were missing some easements and whatnot. So Joe now has that knowledge to make sure that there's no easement issues that we need to. That are gonna hold up that tower from going online, so Joe can stay proactive by making sure they have. You know, the right permits, right things in place, that we don't get a hiccup on those things. That's- But I would say, yeah, in terms of priority, it's not a heavy lift.
Mm.
But it needs to be,
Yeah, there's not a lot we can, other than make sure you connect the dots.
right. Town hall project,
I hope that by the time we meet again, we're gonna tell you a completion date. So I think we're almost there. The elevator is on track as of the meeting last week. The elevator is on track to be completed on July 23rd. The progress on the elevator tower includes the stairs and the floors in the tower. And they don't want to do that until they're done with the elevator. So they'll start laying, putting in the permanent stairs and the new wood floors for the elevator addition the last week in July. But we're cautiously optimistic that we'll be able to potentially move some folks into the first floor of the building. Bathrooms will be working, they'll have the access through both the ramp and the original front door. So we should be able to potentially move the first floor in the last week of July. And maybe by the following week, move in the folks that are upstairs. And really, when you move in the first floor, you're moving in most of what people come to town hall for. The only offices going upstairs are town manager and accounting. So everything else will be, could potentially go in there. I'm working with the building commissioner. He hasn't put it in writing yet, but as long as the elevator is finished on time, there's a good chance that we can have the elevator tested and certified, and we can get the CO for the first floor before the end of the month. So that's keeping I remain optimistic.
Looks beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
They're doing great work. It may be taking longer than we wanted it to, but they're doing great work, and we're not over budget. So as long as I can keep saying we're not over budget, we're lucky. We're not like most towns that are in these situations where you're paying rent to somebody or living in borrowed quarters. We're in a building that we still own. It's not costing us any money, so that's okay. We've really got lucky with the way it worked out, but
the AV system in the memorial room.
AV system, they're gonna be, now that the ceiling's been painted, they're touching up the painting. Bill Melville's gonna be hooking up his room. The setup's gonna be really nice, so there'll be a large screen like this, but much larger behind the select board and the planning board, whoever's at the tables. And each of the seats at the table will have a small monitor. So you'll be able to see what's up on the screen. You won't have to turn around. You'll be able to see everything that's being presented to the public, and the public will be able to see everything. So.
And so that the AV package was finalized and bid out, how did it come in with the, I mean, we're not getting into the detail today, but.
I can have Tim give us an update. I'm not 100%.
I guess, but with town hall, my goals would be, kind of going there, but with town hall, my goals would be that obviously get moved in and get it done and everything, but it's kind of a reset, right, for town, of like, okay, we can kind of use it as a reset, like,
Yeah.
whatever we gotta do in terms of any reorg you wanna do, or communications, or town engagement, or even the file system, they're gonna go to electronic files, but it's kind of a reset, like, as we move back to the town hall, it'd be good to have like some sort of plan, like, okay, we're gonna do things differently or better, or like, what does that plan look like?
Yeah, we are working, we have a group led by our town clerk, who happens to be watching us tonight, leading the effort on the digitization of files. That's ultimately, it's gonna be a multi-year project. It's not something that's gonna happen all at once and convert everything all one way, but we've got Corinne's working really hard with a group of folks to come up with the right plan so that we can start digitizing certain departments and getting them electronic. At the end of the day, you can digitize files so much, but you still have certain records you have to keep in paper file, no matter what, under state law. There's a whole records retention list, certain records you have to keep forever, some records you only have to keep for 4 or 5 or 7 years. But we have to be cognizant of that and know that we're still gonna have to store some paper files, and we can still move towards the digital frontier for our residents' ease of use. I'm trying to spread that needle.
How are we gonna orient the public to the town hall? Like, we're gonna send out, I imagine, like, if you send out, I mean, I don't want to spend a bunch of money, send out money, but send out a 1-page like flyer, it has like a floor plan of town hall saying, hey, this is the layout of town hall. When you go to town hall, this is where you want to go. This is where people are sitting, but we're just waiting for people to go and try and find. I was trying to think of like
We're gonna have
ideas.
wayfinding signage in the building. I think that the good thing will be to invite people to come and direct them to the new main entrance, which is actually at the back of the building. The idea is to get people using the back of the building as the main entrance of the building, because that's fully accessible with the elevator and everything else. You can get to every floor in the building by using that elevator, with a little, very little effort, push a button, you can get there. So we'll get people used to accessing the building that way. They can still come in the side door, they can still come in the front door, but we'll try to push people by messaging that, use the back
What do
door.
you think is worth, I mean, now with like a communication, you send out either with a water bill or on its own or something, but a one page sort of. This is the new town hall, that's how you use it. That's where people are sitting, that's where people, these are the hours, where people are, this is where you park, this is how you get in, this is.
Put all that little
I guess a
wayfinder map
wayfinder.
on the website, so that.
Yeah, you do that too, but
It's
it's,
gonna be easier.
but some people just nice, some people like to get. piece of paper
Hard
in their hand,
copy,
yeah.
right.
It's all taxpayer money, so it'd be good to show the taxpayers, like, not all taxpayers, some is grant money. But show them what they paid for and how it's being used, so.
And who puts those kinds of things together?
Joe would have to work with either the architect or,
Yeah, the architect has all the drawings, and it's just a matter of adding some stuff to that. We can get them to do that. And then we have to produce, they give us the files and we'd have to produce what we're gonna be mailing out. What we produce stuff that gets mailed out all the time, the warrant cards and everything else, so that's what the board wants, that's what we'll get done.
we don't have like, you don't have like a graphic artist that's on.
We don't have a graphic artist on it here. But my budget includes a line for consultant help, so we can try to find somebody, if you really want it to look snazzy, I can get the shape
I mean,
files.
it's a one page thing, but yeah, I think it look nice.
Yeah.
And we wanna build a lot of excitement about this thing, so, as I think the goal, right, because
Yeah.
even with the, I mean, or maybe it's the same card that announces like. The ribbon cutting or whatever we're gonna call it, the art show and the ribbon cutting or,
The art exhibition.
so I think maybe it could all be the same communication.
Yeah,
That'll be a nice way.
ribbon cutting and naming of the tower.
What other town hall things we wanted to work on?
There'll be tours along with the ribbon cutting.
You signing up to be the guide? Yeah, but we can give tours, but I mean, we need to identify who's gonna provide the tours and the guide, it'd be the guides on them, so.
We're thinking
I don't
fall,
want
right?
to-
We're not gonna do
Yeah,
it before
no, I
the
think it's
fall.
September, I
Yeah,
think.
September.
We'll have restaurants have a soft opening and then a grand opening. I think we'll do.
Oh, you get five tour, and you got 5 tour guides right here.
Yeah, be fun. I'll add myself in, but I can't do tours all day long, so happy to have that.
I'll organize the tour.
Happy to have that, so.
Good, you got that volunteer?
I appreciate it, thank you.
What other goals for town hall?
And I think it'd be cool too to have sort of like some of the lessons learned on the ESCO model. That was used for the energy systems there. Maybe that's something too that could be
I think lesson learned would be a great idea.
replicated for other, like for the school district or other municipal buildings, so that if that's a potential roadmap and a way for us to, it sounds like not need to put up as much capital, on the projects and having somebody else take ownership over that system and its operations, I think that could be useful. I know that they were looking at sort of, age of equipment studies. Our energy manager was, I got her name also.
Vicky.
Um, So I think that would be helpful to have, that's a way for us to. It's the bird.
That was good to me, yeah. I think it'd be great for the town to kind of crow about what we were able to do to get that building built without asking again for an override. We got told twice, no, so, but to be able to still get the project done. Virtually the same project without having to do an override was great.
It's a historic landmark site as well,
I mean, it'd
right?
be good to get some press out of it too, so I'm not sure if that's local press or
Yeah,
regional
the
press.
state is still telling me that we're still gonna be, when we open up, we're still gonna be the first. Zero carbon historic town hall in the state of Massachusetts.
It's just so beautiful. It's so exciting, and I think we should get some big time press on
Put that in the goals too, or just see what we can do with the local regional press. Take some credit for the hard work we did to the community.
National, let's go national.
Let's go 60 minutes. Rising tide, raising bells. Yeah, sure.
It sure can.
All right,
Oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
town hall chargers, are those up and running again, or will they be when?
They'll be up and running again once we open it to, but the site's not technically open to the public, even though we took the fencing down. That was more cosmetic to help with the Memorial Day festivities. We're not really inviting people onto the site right now, it's still construction site.
But the chargers are working.
Yeah.
They're in working order.
Yeah.
and everything.
They'll be fine.
Okay, but access, sorry.
and. Is there anything that we sort of said, okay, we're gonna wait and do like a day two? Was there anything like we need to start thinking about, like, okay, we were able to afford. And this is now done, but there's some day two stuff that we couldn't afford, but we either wanna wait a year and see what we wanna do, or we wanna start raising money for it. Was there anything that sort of, you are ready to put like, on, okay, we got what we needed, but we didn't include this.
So, yeah, so Tim has a list of some things that we wanna kind of go back and revisit, and some of them. Because the project's coming in on budget, some of them we might actually be able to do now without, so there's some things like,
What about the cell?
the cell is still there. We didn't get rid of the cell.
That's not.
Was it like an old like constables like cell?
Yeah, the police station used to be in, it was actually working, it was actually working cell at one point, because the police station was based in the building, and so if they had to lock somebody up overnight, they locked them up in the basement of town hall.
You're up in the future.
There you go. Well, that'll get to the tourists, like.
So make sure we're key, but yeah, it'd be good to know, like, also like, we did this, but like, let's not kick the can down the road another 20 years and think
Yeah.
about, okay, what's the maintenance plan look like? What's the next thing we need to do? But it's good to sort of, I think that some people you hear from the town say, oh, and it's incorrect information, but it's a perception of, oh, we need to do elementary schools because we didn't maintain it. Not correct assumption, but that's what people say. We want to make sure we have that, we know how we're gonna maintain these buildings, so we don't, so they last for another 50 to 100 years, so.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to. It
Right.
just was so soundly built to begin with. It's
Right.
pretty amazing.
But even when you say that, so that the building lasts another 50 to 100 years, well, you reference the elementary schools have lasted over.
I know,
50 years.
that's what I'm saying.
They did last.
Right. They were not correct statements, but they were made, it's good to just be able to stay ahead of that stuff.
Yeah.
Than negative messaging and with our proactive planning, so. All right, what else with the town on anything? Okay. Gordon Conwell, Browns Hill. Is there anything left to do over there for us? Wait for the check to come in. But you're just watching the approval of the
Yeah.
apartments in the background?
Yeah, I've been in touch with both the buyer and the seller. The last I heard was that they're looking at a late July, early August actual closing of the sale of the student housing. And, I know that the buyer had some concerns based on a couple of things, whether it's not in town, but more probably on the state list, but they seem to have those under control now. And so we're just waiting for them to do that, and then we'll see what we gotta do to help them, but they're not planning to make any, major changes that would be like detrimental in terms of noise and stuff to the neighborhood. They're gonna go and fix them up as best they can, and they wanna get as many of the units as they can, at least a couple of the buildings rented out as soon as possible. That's kind of their whole goal,
Mm.
to make them livable and get people in, so.
And how's the SHI application going?
They won't open that process until they own the buildings, so they don't own the buildings yet, so that'll be,
Okay.
we'll pick that up, but there's been contact made from our town, Mark Connors, the state's aware of what's going on and has lined up, and the buyer has lined up somebody that works in the affordable housing space to help with to make sure that they're doing all of what they need to do to make
Right.
sure that the units qualify, so we're gonna do everything right, they're gonna do everything right, and then it's up to the state whether or not they all qualify. We think they will.
I think the secondary goal is the prioritize things, kind of like the cell phone thing, like. You don't have to do much, but you gotta you gotta keep them honest to make sure they're following through on the process. And they're not gonna say, oh. They don't submit something that doesn't get approved, like we wanna make sure it doesn't get approved because we went through all the right steps, we submitted all the right paperwork and.
That's
we
right.
really
I
want-
wrote the agreement was maintaining some of the public access, right?
So is there any need for like signage or communication to like communicate that out for?
Well, I mean,
access?
so it was kind of always allowed in the
They
first
were-
place, and then there was no signage and people just knew.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't, we could talk to the seminary and see what they want to do, but unless,
We made.
unless you're making a
We made
change.
agreement silent on it, because we sort of made it sort of say, hey, we're not changing what's there, so we don't, so. But yes, and they basically said verb, like, we're not, but unless there's some security concern, we're not gonna close off campus. So, but yeah, it's an interesting point, but, and there's no, and then the gentleman retired, what's his name, where he's retiring from?
Scott.
Scott Sundquist is retiring, as the, seminary president at the, so.
Do we know who the next president is?
No.
So it's not started yet, you know.
Yeah, we didn't meet Scott, until after the other president had left as well, so it's a private entity, they'll do their best to maintain relationships with us, I'm sure, but we met Scott after the other president retired. I'm sure we'll meet the next one when he comes in, so.
I would say we should be this squeaky wheel on that too, and just put it on your list of like, hey, we'd love to meet, candidates.
And we worked so hard. to
I know you can't-
read this.
Yeah, I mean,
Stuff on it, Joe, but I would be the squeaky wheel a little bit, so to make sure that we get somebody that understands the community is an important part of the school, and we don't want somebody who doesn't realize that, so. If we wanna make sure that's important to them as well. If we can't tilt the needle, but we can be, be squeaky.
Yeah. Doesn't hurt, just to ask, right?
Yeah.
And there's a strong candidate, they'll be excited to put them in front of you, just to make the connection.
And we'd be happy to invite them to a select board meeting.
We'll have dinner.
Yeah. Check a few thousands of all.
We're interested in collaboration.
Yeah.
Patent Homestead. I mean, that's still gonna stay on there until it's closed and done, but just give us a quick summary of what the timeline might look like.
Yeah, so you all know that the property was appraised. The appraisal was provided to the heirs of the Patton family. We have heard verbally, haven't confirmed with counsel that he's heard legally from their counsel, but heard verbally that the existing heirs are not intending to buy the property. I had one conversation with one of the children, and he said he didn't tell me specifically he isn't interested in buying it. So once we have the confirmation from them, we can put the property, we can finalize the survey and put the property up for sale via the RFP. The entity, Patton Foundation, is still very interested. I also had a conversation with them, and they have indicated to me that they have lined up their financing for the purchase of the property, as was outlined in the survey that we showed at town meeting. So they're still comfortable moving forward and have some ideas. There are some things that we need to have some more conversation with. I think the board at some point should, and this is just a recommendation for me, but I think the board at some point should entertain a public meeting with the planning board this summer. For two reasons. One, to talk about Patton Homestead. There's likely to be an existing zoning issue, right? It's zoned as residential, agricultural, and the use isn't gonna be that, so there'd be a non-conforming use. Now, there will be a nonprofit. How that plays into it, do they need to just go to the ZBA and get a use variance? And is that sufficient? In many ways, that could be a good solution because it allows you to have the property revert back to RA if Patton Foundation wants to go away someday. If otherwise, you could work with the planning board on potential zoning changes that might help. But that's a longer process, and that would mean either
I think there's a
Town meeting.
pathway for non-conforming uses for them to go directly to the planning board to get
non-conforming use, you go directly to ZBA. ZBA provides variances to dimensional and use zoning, so the ZBA would be who would determine. So they'd have to apply for.
as long as they're not expanding the existing non-conforming use.
Well, they'd be applying for a first-time non-conforming use, but you can get a use variance. They'd be asking for a use variance based on their business plan. And then they would potentially be reined in on how much they could actually do to the property, which may or may not present a problem for them. But we need to have them explain that to us and what they want us to do.
Sounds like learning opportunity.
for all of us.
What's the timeline look for this?
I think that we'll probably have the property for sale sometime during the month of July. For sale property has to stay advertised for at least a month on the central register and be advertised at least twice. And a paper of record in the 2 weeks preceding the opening of the bids. So if we get it open in July, we can probably close in sometime late August and then have bids to look at. The RFP is gonna be structured in a way that it's asking for, the type of use that's been proposed by the Patent Foundation, because that's what we told town meeting, so, I don't know if there'll be a lot of people bidding on it, but they know what the appraisal is, so they're prepared.
So we can ask for that sort of bids without it being actually approved for that use by the ZBA?
Yep, the town owns it, we can ask for it that way, even if the zoning doesn't match up. Seen it happen lots of places.
So would the offers then be contingent on being able to get through the CBA?
They could choose to make the offer contingent on getting the zoning in place. Or zoning or variances in place to be able to operate.
So the goal is to get this through in the next year.
Goals to get through in the next year without needing any further action by town meeting unless the buyer and the town want to pursue a zoning change. That would be the only thing that we would be looking to do at town meeting, hoping that we can, well. If the buyer wants a zoning change in the planning, in the town planning boards willing to work with them, that's fine. And we can have that lined up for the annual if they want to make it seamless and take ownership of the property quicker, we can talk about potentially finding a way to get them into the building without the zone. So, yeah. Okay.
Joe, do you run into an issue with spot zoning, because that would be the only building in that whole district that would be up for zoning change, so I wonder about that.
Spot zoning, it isn't just it isn't just about it being one parcel. There's a lot of things that go into making a determination about spot zoning. We'll have town council look at it and make sure that they recommend us.
What zoning would this need to be in? What does it be?
It would probably be some kind of a commercial district to change from the nonprofit uses. Which could be, but you could also avoid a lot of.
There's a commercial use over
zoning
that for this commercial use right there.
Overlay, this,
Next,
and there's a, right, and then you could do, and we could actually use a, like this as a way.
right, but I think that's the RA district, right?
Yes, so the farmers on the right.
All right,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm hoping that maybe a simple use change through the ZBA would be the easiest and cleanest thing. Was it?
We'll see, me too, we'll see. So,
Anything else with that? Then I guess what happens and maybe a plan for. What's left and then what do we need to do to maintain that over the course of a year? Like, what do we know what that means? Just at that point, just. Landscaping and maintenance of
Yeah.
landscaping.
right, well, I mean, the goal is to ask papers under, have them take ownership of the cost as soon as possible, but,
But what we're left with though.
we're gonna, so as long as we own it, we're gonna have to, well, what's left after we sell it,
Yeah.
it's gonna be just maintenance of the large field and stuff, which is a lot less, and, and then with the property part of the property that we're selling, our goal is to sell it as soon as we can, but as long as we own it, we'll have to maintain, heat, insurance.
Right, I'm fine with that. We're saying once we sell it, is there a plan for what's left and how we maintain it?
Yeah, the goal will be to continue to maintain the field. We can actually
Parking lot?
deliver, we keep the lower level
Yeah.
gravel markets.
Right. With all the dumpsters.
Gone by the 29th, I think, it should be on today or tomorrow.
Where it fits here.
Oh, really? Already? For the
You should drive by.
trash can?
Yeah,
drive by.
there's been
Oh,
different, they've been out there for 2 weeks.
That's not very long, though. People have been asking me about.
Oh, I think everybody in town is throwing their garbage can over there, looks like.
Yeah.
We had a couple of people drive right past that lot
Really?
and up and put it next to the dumpster, next to the stables, and I'm like, that doesn't really look like. the
today's
place to
one.
do that.
Giant pile.
You drive right by and see the big parking lot full of garbage cans, and then you drive right all the way up to the hill.
Going by.
And I'm like, all right, well, that's what you saw, it is what it is.
A huge pile of garbage cans.
Aren't even good?
where are those going? Are those down to a dump, or they have a
Recycle.
recycler that we just gonna attempt?
Casellas can take it back and do whatever they have to do, and they're gonna deal with it, it's part of the change out, so.
It'll make tired, you know.
Yes.
There's new ones you could fit a body in.
This is not a dark
This
place.
is a person in there.
So you could have
Yeah.
a birthday party.
We're not gonna go body.
A live body.
Unbelievable.
Like, what they got in,
You
your said to me. Alright. The big one next is school district, so we got the regional agreement, which is still. Not anywhere, how long, how much, is that what the timeline on that, is that something that we mentioned?
Yeah,
I'll let Tom take the lead on that one, I mean, they chose to take a pause on it. Because everything was going on, I think it's something we could pick up again once,
Was it reasonable to say we can get it done by the end of next year?
by
I
town
mean,
meeting, it's gonna require. town
There's
meeting.
just a couple of issues, they're major issues, but I mean, there's only down to a couple, but it's really around like the, you know, how we're dividing up the, cost allocation, right? I think that's the biggest one, and we want a little bit more factors to be determined and how we, rather than just the last 3 years or something like that, but I think the school district and even one of them, I think is,
Not necessarily in Wenham's interest to revisit the,
Yeah.
the apportionment, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's been talk about stretching out to 5 years instead of 3 years, just to create a little bit more level, so not as big
right,
a
so a little, yeah.
peaks and valleys, but, yeah, the committee stopped meeting and decided to take a pause while we were getting through the town meeting after all that happened last year, was just decided to let everything cool down and then take it up again. That wasn't me, that was all of them members there, so.
The new contract comes, will come back to annual town meeting then. Once it's
The
done.
agreement.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
A new agreement would have to be approved by both town meetings.
Get approved by each committee,
And
board
then the
of
state,
committee, and then town meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
and then the state has to approve it, so.
Yeah.
We are really trying to link it to the state template for what's supposed to be in the agreement, and make sure all that stuff's there, so.
Okay.
And
One of the substantive changes besides the allocation or.
The audit, is the audit in there, party audit?
The audit, hold on.
We talked about adding like a third party audit on a, instead of when they want to, like on some sort of regular basis,
Yeah.
whether it was every year, every other year, but right now it was like. It's sort of silent on it, talked about it, but didn't give like a,
I don't think that's.
Well, I mean, it's just like there's an audit done of our books every year, there's an audit done in the school district, but like, as far as something that's publicly,
yeah, we talked about. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's the cost allocation is added in there. It is the, you know, formalizing sort of the budgetary and capital planning process.
which is
Which I think is important.
great, we've been working with what's in the draft document right now for the last 2 or 3 years. So we're meeting, more frequently with the 5 chairs, and then that leads into work by the administrative staffs before the first of the 2 big 5 boards meetings. And, the current agreement only calls for 1 5 boards meeting. But for the last 4 years, we've been doing 2 5 boards meetings, and we've been doing, multiple 5 chairs meetings to lead opposite kind of. And it's been helpful in terms of everybody is entering those bigger meetings with a little bit better understanding of where everybody is at.
Right.
Which made it a better working relationship, even though we still sometimes hear things we don't want to hear, but.
And then another controversial topic, I guess for the public's sake, is formalizing the language around the school committee calling for an election, which is outlined in state law. And so kind of putting that language in there. I know there was previously from folks on that, so that will have to get voted and approved on.
One way or the other.
And then Joe, what was
Are we
the,
targeting the April annual town meeting then? Is that?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily in our control per se, but like,
What if you tell me that you want us to target next April town meeting, then that provides an impetus for me to talk to Wenham, the school committee, say, hey, we need to pick this up again, our board wants to get moving on this.
the only thing with that, wasn't there something around the elections about needing special legislation? Is that?
So that was the one other piece that was undecided, and there's still some. The way the seats are portioned now, is all 7 seats are up for grabs in both towns, and there was some desire, even on one side, that they were willing to kind of define it a little bit, so have there be a minimum of 3 in each town with 1 seat that could go to either town.
Yeah.
But that would require the election then to be done on the state calendar cycle in November, or for both towns to adopt a home rule petition to allow us to hold a cross-district election in the spring. So it could go, depending how it all shakes out in the final negotiations, it could go to town meeting with a vote on whether or not we want the home rule petition to identify how members are elected to the school committee, and then the agreement itself.
So then it would go for special legislation after it gets voted by town meeting.
Well, yeah, well, we do the home rule petition vote.
Yeah.
Simultaneously.
Okay, yep.
And would that, home rule allow for just elections? Is that the scope of that, having a 2-town,
Yeah,
election?
Yes.
It would just be for that.
For the election, the number of members and how we get elected, so.
Yeah, okay.
Cause there have been times in the last couple of years where the majority of members in the school committee were from Wenham. Well, quite frankly, it's been because nobody from Hamilton was running.
Right.
And so, but you wind up in this imbalance where at least 4 and sometimes 5 members of the committee were Wenham seats, and the town of Hamilton now pays 2/3 of the bill. We kind of feel like there's been some feeling among past boards that you didn't have actual representation at the meetings about how the budget gets decided. You're wanting to have more representation on the school committee. Again, it's still being negotiated how we attack it, not because Wenham isn't willing to. Wenham and the school committee aren't willing to talk about that, more because of the state law about how elections happen.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable goal that we could reignite the committee this fall and try and get that on.
We both.
Actually, I'll come onto this too, around like capital planning in particular, so that's gonna be in the agreement. It's valuable to have them kind of headed in the same direction as we're headed.
Yeah.
So the other thing with the school obviously is we can't do anything about it, but how do we promote whatever they're gonna do, their next capital projects? I know it's not really in our purview, but is that anything we should have as a goal?
Like between 5 chairs and
So then the language in the new agreement, the draft language of the new agreement does call out a capital planning process and establishes a school committee capital subcommittee they've already actually established and in fact are working with. So they're again trying to get on our schedule, Hamilton and Wenham schedule for how we decide capital, make sure that we're aware of the projects that they've got coming down the line, have it part of the whole capital conversation, but it's not in the agreement currently, but they're trying to work that way.
But even as an agreement, it's not like it's the select board part of that committee.
No,
Right.
but in the agreement, they would be forced to, produce their capital needs for a 5-year period, and focus on what they're looking for in the coming year, and then over the next 5 years, and that would be able to be for us to decide how we analyze it or process that against the rest of the capital needs for the town of Hamilton, while Wenham does that for the town of Wenham.
Well, here's my question, is I don't want to remain silent on it, so what can we put in a goal, either as a town goal or as a town manager goal? For how we help that process along, so it doesn't either not happen or doesn't fail again. That way, I think it's not in our purview, but we still can help with the process. I'm just trying to figure out, is there anything we could, is there any goal?
How do we structure a goal so that we
Yeah.
can be proactive?
Yeah, thank you.
That's a question to the board to ponder and come back with, okay? Nothing on it, so we need tonight, but for us to be thinking about.
Been planning on starting a capital plan for some time, haven't they? Is this what we're talking about?
Right,
I mean,
like I
just
said,
to
they've actually done it. They've identified the members of the school committee that are on the capital subcommittee.
Right.
They've started to put down a plan with what is needed and trying to prioritize it, and
Right.
so they're working on it.
Yeah.
Even though the district agreement as is doesn't require it, but we're trying to get it into the district
So
agreement as
this
well.
would just memorialize that to make that a requirement.
Exactly.
Well, I think the goal is
Somebody else
to
can
new
put it down.
agreement at the ATM in April.
Yeah, with that one, levelizing that, and maybe we even, in part of negotiations, negotiate to have the select board. Member of each select board on that committee, right? I mean, the liaison to be a part of it, right?
Or liaison at least, right?
Right.
You can demand a liaison without
Yeah,
impacting bylaws or
yeah, maybe like a non-voting. member
jurisdictional.
Or something.
within-
Yeah,
Right, yeah. What I call that, like an associate member.
yeah, an associate member, non-voting member to at least, keep the communication flowing back between both boards or three boards.
Wasn't there also, talk about having, FinCom members on that project as well?
Income members are allowed to be on committees as voting members in any other board or committee where they would have, to be making a recommendation. So that's, John's raising his hand.
Yes,
It's a 7-member committee. A member of the capital committee. That is on the 7-member board. So that's, in this case, Nick tends to serve.
Hamilton's capital committee as a member of serving on
Which
the.
is good.
On
And they have
the-
committed, we're operating as if the agreement is already done.
Right, okay.
So it's good, but. You might want, we might want to add official member of the select board. Attend or be part of.
Yeah.
So that's the way it's. So I think it achieves everything we want, we just need to execute the deal.
and would you be part of that process also? Their capital planning committee, you would just sort of morph your role into being part of that as well?
I mean, I think whatever liaison select board member for the school committee should be, be part of that role, yeah.
Because sometimes you don't always get the information of what,
Yeah, no, I think,
So
so. I
that would
think,
be
I think I'm glad that some of the capital committee is
Yeah.
on it, but I think, for us to, have like regular reports on it, I think it'd be helpful for someone from the select board to be on
Yeah,
it.
I would require that representative under the select board on a regular basis. Through the budgeting cycle, so you guys are keep track of what's happening.
Yeah.
That would be part of the goal, I would think you'd want.
Yeah.
Is to get a regular readout. What's going on with the schools, well, Joe does it. Ask that person to come to your meeting.
who would that be? That would not be you?
Well,
Oh,
or pass on.
Or you could have the Capcom, you could have.
If we're not a member of the board of the Capcom.
But yeah, so.
Okay, if you were not.
If we don't have a member of the select board,
Right.
have someone, the member from the Capcom.
Right,
Come
right,
report
okay.
out.
The superintendent is always willing to make a report out.
Maybe monthly.
Yeah.
So, we maybe put that in,
Every other
well, have a periodic visit and.
I like that.
He's always pretty good about coming over. if you need anything.
Yep.
Bring up the schools.
I just, sorry, to pop up, but formalizing that requirement for the superintendent to report. I mean, even if Eric Tracy currently is happy to come and report to us at any point.
There's a change in
If
the
there's a change
future.
in the future, or if it becomes more antagonistic relationship, it might be good to have it as part of the agreement. That's an expectation.
Yeah.
You could,
We can ask for it. It's not, I mean,
It's not,
it's not something we can actually require.
but they could agree to it.
But they could agree to it. So,
You can
you know,
negotiate it.
Yeah, negotiate,
Yeah.
So we're talking what?
Quarterly, sorry.
We're talking about,
Extra little tiny.
We're talking about quarterly, a quarterly update from the superintendent at the select board meetings. Is that what you're looking for?
I think, yeah, some regular cadence, I think, quarterly, or I think that's fair, right?
So, yeah, so we're negotiating so it's negotiating a. Agreement so we can vote on at the April meeting, and then also the goal is getting these things that we just talked about into the agreement at some level.
Yeah.
And obviously through the help of us, but at least you can.
Okay.
Guide it.
Yeah.
Make sure we're not missing it. Okay. All right. Last one I'm gonna leave to you, Joe. From last year, but obviously, it's been always our goal, but better public communication. You have money now in the budget to do it. So what is a measurable goal you want us to have over the next year in terms of public communication? Like, what are you thinking that goal is? We can comment on what your thoughts are.
The goal will be that we're gonna have here in the next 6 months, we're gonna have staff member that's accessible and able to help us daily with communicating different things, to be in touch with boards and committees and with department heads. Utilize the website and all the time social media, reinforcing the relationship with Hamilton Wenham cable access and the Hamilton Wenham News, so that we have kind of regular access to getting out into the public the information that we all know about, but we haven't really done a great job of amplifying it out to the community all the time. So we tend to be more reactionary than proactive when it comes to communication, so.
So you're gonna look at all the different platforms, decide like what the best platform, whether it's.
Well, we'll use multimedia, we'll do
Yeah.
multiple platforms, we currently do, but again, unfortunately, a lot of our communication is. I've been criticized for it, and rightly so, it's been mostly reactionary or on when special things happen.
Right.
Not proactive, thinking ahead, so that's the goal of having the communications person. So we've got applicants to the position, we're scheduling how we're gonna review those applicants. We also have determined through the process that we think there'll be a need for some, outside consultancy that kind of help set up kind of templates and models and strategy for that new person coming on. So we're gonna look to support the new person with some of the funds that are in my line for contracting, because I have a consultant line and town manager.
So it's,
So we're
it's
trying to
someone on board,
help.
someone
Someone
on board. Get a new website
get a new website, which is already being developed.
and then have this person as their first activity, sort of design a. A plan, a multimedia community plan that they can bring to the board, we can.
Right.
Understand what it is, vote on it.
My goal would be to have you kind of reviewing that plan in September, early October.
Yeah.
And, then with your blessing and feedback, we'd make adjustments and then.
Remind this person's how many hours a week?
It's a $50,000 a year part-time position, so we're looking at maybe like 20 to 22,
Okay.
depending.
What will happen with, Gates?
Bobby's exists in the budget at this very small rate, and we didn't take him out of the budget, so we can maintain him. If there's need to, I certainly think to start, he's got all the passwords and knows all of our social media accounts and stuff. Bobby's done a good job for what it is we ask him to do. And there's always a need to do stuff on weekends and things like that, so he's available, so.
That person more on the IT kind of side of things, like.
No, it'll be somebody with a background and understanding of communication.
Bob, sorry.
Oh, Bobby, Bobby used, the background of Bobby Gates is, he used to work for the Hamilton Wenham Chronicle years ago, and that was still a viable newspaper, and then he left for professional reasons, get paid more, and so at that time, my predecessor hired him to help with social media. And so he does a lot of, pushing things out for us on Facebook, Twitter, Facebook X and Instagram, and whatever other social media. I think that's the bulk of what we use for social media.
So,
And he's provided some advice to us in the past to try to, put things on the website and stuff, but we need more than
Yeah.
his availability, so.
yeah, I think how we organize information on let's like think about it, it's like, it's a digital ecosystem, right? It's like the website is gonna be one of our primary.
Yeah.
Platforms of where we store kind of like record information about, here's what we've done so far, here's what we're gonna do next. And making that information accessible and digestible.
Right.
So that, then you can, and having it all, that digital information linked together so that you can drill into it as well. I think that's one of the areas where we've not done that well. Like, it's like stuff buried, and if you understand how municipal governments work, you can find it, right? But if you don't, and you're coming in from the outside, it's very hard to like drill into that information. So
Are you looking at a policy, there's an old policy, on the new policy.
Right,
that's a classic example.
Yeah.
But I think there's a need as well, like, so there's like, whatever our communication strategy is going to be, that there's kind of like the weekly stuff, right? And then there's the stuff that's like, oh, trash is delayed by a week, like what's the comms plan for like trash first? Like, that's pretty easy. I think those are sort of like table stakes things, where think we're really looking to improve and level up is on the longer range planning activities. You know, so we could take water as an example, or any other one of these, like big goals, like you could build out, well, what would that look like? If we're doing communications better, what would success look like against one of these goals?
Or even like, I know it's a stupid thing, but even rolling out the new recycling cans, like that would have been a perfect, like a test case on how to use
Right,
all of our resources to do it the right way, because I think a lot of people missed it and didn't
And the-
understand it, and like.
yeah, and I went-
That's a perfect
well, one
example.
of the people who didn't get trashed or recycling bin, you know, so it's like, I happen to know who Tim is, so I just go right to Tim.
Tim is still-
But, well, I actually gave it to the paper, because they didn't get it. But, so I was trying to then figure out, like, all right, well, there must be a form or something I fill out, you know, and I'm digging around, I can't find, so I just Tim. Right, but I think if
Right.
you don't know who Tim is, or what Tim's email address is, you're sort of lacking that. But again, I think those are the types of things that are easier, they're smaller in duration, like as a program, like a singular event. Versus the things that are gonna span years and span multiple select boards. You know, that those are the types of things where having that digital record as well, so people can see where we've been, where we are, and where we're going, right? Bringing people along, so they also know when that opportune time is for participation. I think that's one of the things where it's like, you know, you're new to town, sort of like, oh, I know when to participate, when we're taking up or down vote, like, you know, it's gonna. But like, that would have been like super helpful to have those person's ideas 2-3 years ago, right? Or even 16 months ago, maybe we shouldn't bring this in front of the town right now, because people aren't there yet, right? Or whatever it's gonna be. So that's where I see a lot of our focus in terms of how we build out this strategy, where we'll get the most return on the investment. I think the other things are good for like flexing the muscles and exercising, getting this ecosystem up and running, but not necessarily a measure of success. I think it's just kind of like really good for us. It'll be a big improvement for our town, but at the same time, it's kind of like, I feel like that should be table stakes, you know, or if it's a short duration thing, one-time event, or the weekly updates, you know, that's table stakes. Like, I'm more interested in the bigger picture things, and like how we can help people get engaged, help keep them informed. Otherwise it's easy to lose track. Next thing you know, you're voting on something that's tens of millions of dollars. You're like, where the heck did this come from? Right? So sorry for a little more soapbox speech there, but I think that's where it's like the digital infrastructure, you know, getting that set up is definitely a goal. Having, you know, getting the staff person on, having a consultant probably do some, I don't know, kind of like assessment on like, where are we now?
Yeah.
Like, we
Put a plan together, we can talk about.
rewind the video and watch my monologue here. And then
7:24 to 7:48.
So those are kind of like some of the goals I feel like want to be in there, right?
Yeah.
It's like, have we stood up the infrastructure? Have we gotten some quick wins? You know, shown that, like, shown to the public that we're doing a better job. So
Yep.
they're like, hey, that was money well spent. I felt much more informed about what's going on with water, or what's going on with the X or Y. I know I keep picking on water, because it's a top of the list, but all right, that's my soapbox.
That makes sense.
You're not picking on water. Since I've been here, water's been at the top of my
No,
list of
it's not.
goals. So if you're not picking on the water, water is the main issue of concern in the town, and it has been. We'll continue to. We're making progress. Slower than we want it to be, but we are making progress. So
We're in better shape than we were. No, it makes sense what you said, and I think there's no better opportunity to sort of. Like, last thing we want to do is hire this person, and then people not to know we hired this person, right? So we wanna do good communication first, and so people know that, like, we're actually.
If they see a marked improvement, right, you have these quick wins too, and it's like, I don't want that to be the thing, you know, so if it ends up on the chopping block in a year or two, if we're having successful.
Just a quick similar thread, or since we're talking about technology, is there any investments we need to make in that North Shore IT collaborative that we're involved in? Is there anything that we need to do there?
great question. Timing's a little funny. I have my next annual meeting with them on Thursday. So I can kind of report back to you a little bit at the end of the meeting next Monday. kind of what they're looking for, long term down the road. But we continue to stay plugged into them. Some of our other partners in the collaborative are using them more than we are. Because we have Andy Wood, who has been doing a good job for us. He's the architect of our infrastructure. And we're not dissatisfied with him, but we know, you have to plan for the future. Several of our towns are almost exclusively using Danvers as kind of their IT department. And that comes with a bigger cost. I don't think we're there yet. But Andy has a good working relationship with the guys at Danvers. They have come over to help troubleshoot stuff for us when we needed to. And they're there on call. They're helping us strategically plan, particularly for cybersecurity and training for our staff, make sure that we're not allowing any outside threats into the system, or at least reducing our risk to. But yeah, I can give you more of an update after we have our annual meeting this coming Thursday.
Is this what I review?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's July 9th, so I'll be able to update you
Missing a week,
later.
right?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
I think we're doing one.
It's,
Does the website redo have a document management strategy in place?
yeah, it's to not have as many pages saved as the current one does. Our biggest issue with the,
Yeah, no, not actually like webpage document stuff, but actual documents like.
oh, yeah, so that's part of the program that Corinne's working on, for digitization of records, and there's a document management system, known as Laserfish, that we're gonna be eventually kind of getting people to use instead of our current methods of creating documents and having applications and things. We'll try to get everything over time into the Laserfish system, and that'll manage both the creation and of documents, and then management of them, and the accessibility of them through the computer.
Okay. And Corinne's running that.
Yes.
All
I
right,
am ever grateful for.
we kind of made it through our list from last year, and now we sort of can get the lobby for new stuff. So I'll go around the room, I'll go last, so we'll start with roadways. I think we had at least two things I heard about, but why don't you talk about the two things or the three things you want to add to our goals for the year?
Two things, a couple of bylaws. First one, I was in speaking with Chief Guy a few days ago, and we talked about the e-bike problem on the streets in town. And I had seen 3 instances that scared the daylights out of me. Some 14-year-old kid was riding an e-bike without a helmet against traffic on 1A, and I about had a heart attack. That was really scary. And then down on Union Street, down there where we live, there were 2 young'uns, boys on mopeds or scooters. I don't know, they were motorized somethings, and I tend to drive very slowly because there are lots of kids, but they both came toward me and had absolutely no idea of the rules of the road. I just pulled over, and they just thought it was the funniest thing. So, and during our conversation, Chief Guy and I talked about the fact that the state has something in committee for an e-bike regulations, but there's no reason, and Chief also feels the same way, that there's no reason why we couldn't impose something on our town, in our town for safety. These kids shouldn't be running around like this, and it's just an accident waiting to happen. And then the second thing.
Let's talk about that one first.
Okay,
I think it's a good point. I think it's a good thing to do.
okay,
So, right, so I think our number one goal is figure out what we can do, and then whether it's, I don't know whether it's a law or policy or education or software,
be a bylaw,
right, whatever it is, but I think, I agree, I've seen
way too many.
dangerous
frightening
situations out
things,
there that we, I mean, it's like, we're starting with education, and it's like, there's existing laws in place that probably govern some of it, but
Yeah, I mean,
as things over a certain speed limit have to be, but anyway, but I think so that's not just on you though, because that's really us. to do.
Right, right.
So it's more of like a town than a joke,
Joe
but
could be the sort of
it could be the same
monitor.
thing, right? You could be the one that pushes it forward, but
Right, is there a possibility, I mean, it sounds like you talked to Chief Guy, but is there a possibility of asking the police department to look into what their
Existing
current
laws are.
existing laws are?
Well, there isn't one, that's the issue. I mean, there are for some things, but not for, there are, bylaw, there are laws for mopeds and things like that, but not for e-bikes or lesser versions. And so that's why the state is, developing their regulations. And I will reach out to Christine Kasner to get a sense of what they're working on. But there's no reason why we couldn't, in the meantime, do something. We can certainly make our own bylaws, as we all know,
Rosie, what
so.
would you be thinking as far as like restrictions on like hour restrictions or like, well, I'm just curious what, I think it's a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
I've had some run-ins on Union myself where I find people whizzing down there in the middle of the road, like like in the dark with no
Yes.
reflective clothing on, and
Yes.
it's scary.
It is, it's really something. So, we talked about it briefly. The plan was that I was going to, look at what the state is proposing. It's in committee, so heaven only knows how long that will take. But I think talking with Chief Guy some more about what he thinks are reasonable. I mean, age requirements, speed requirements, helmets. None of these kids had helmets on. Where do they ride on the sidewalks? Do they ride on the road, which side of the road? I mean, just a lot of education. And what age should these kids be riding these things? So a lot of parameters. So that's why I thought it would be good to look at the state's
Yeah.
suggestions. And as you know, I mean, we can certainly do what we think is right for our town.
We don't wanna wait for something to happen.
Right,
Is
exactly.
there a pathway to?
Right, I've even seen kids on those little motorized bikes. I don't exactly remember how to categorize it, but motorized in Patton Park with other little kids in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
That's the easy one, the easy ones are on town-owned property, we could do that. In
Yeah.
one meeting, but it's the other stuff that we didn't think about, too. Yeah, somebody came by with a little two wheels
Yeah.
once. There's one wheel, it's one wheel, they sit on one wheel, and they're whizzing down the road.
There's
50 miles an hour
somebody, I don't
on
know.
One wheel.
Yeah, there's a guy at the block party doing that, going in between people at the block on one wheel. I was like, what are you doing?
There's somebody, and I don't know where he lives or where he works, but I've had multiple reports. He uses 1A through Hamilton in his travels virtually every day.
Yeah.
And no helmet, one wheeler, like as fast as that thing will go right down 1A. And it's frightening, like.
Yeah.
There might be another pathway too around like permitting, or like we're allowed to require permits, or if that's also.
A good educational process to go through.
Yeah.
Do like requiring permits and safety, like a safety exam or things like that. Maybe there's some fees too to be garnered.
Yeah, I mean, if we can try to get town council to come in, you might want to put a committee together for that. And a general bylaw, a general town bylaw would have to be approved at town meeting. The threshold would only need to be 50% to pass it. But I definitely think it's something that if you want to do it, what you should probably think about, once you make this a part of your goals of the year, probably should establish a subcommittee, have at least 2 members of the select board work with somebody else. Somebody in the public safety team and maybe a representative or two from the community. And, start to fashion what it is you want the town to consider. I think there's a lot of things you could do that'd be pretty easy and pretty straightforward. Getting into issuing local permits will be difficult, particularly for people who travel through the town on 1A or any other major roads. Yeah, it's one thing in the neighborhoods or in Patton Park, but on 1A, somebody coming from Ipswich doesn't need to get a permit in Hamilton to be able to drive through Hamilton on Route 1A. So, or even Route 22, Essex Street, right? So you'll have some challenges with a permit idea,
Right.
but you'll have,
But like safety's top priority is like.
Education, safety number one, and then we see what we do from there,
and
regulation.
enforcement.
yeah.
Yeah,
What we can.
Yeah, but you have to give the local police something that's legally,
Enforceable.
enforceable,
Right.
right? So-
Right, and that's why the chief guy said he'd be willing to enforce.
Okay, so we all agree we should do something like that, okay?
Yeah.
We'll put that, and then what's the other one, yeah? Date on dark sky.
Dark skies bylaw, I know that's been, roaming around for a while, but, Andrew Rowe has been working with a small group of people to, just work on that, and she has approached a few people in town. She's talked to, who's that person who owns that yellow building on Railroad Ave? Just because that would be an issue. It's basically just not lighting up every inch of the town. One of the issues with the, proposed, solar panel is at the high school and the middle school is that they were planned to be sort of lights blaring all night. And that's, there's a lot of sort of natural habitat behind that. I think it's something to think about. She's very committed to this and asked me my opinion about it, and I thought I would bring it up as a goal. I mean,
I
lots of.
thought we already had it as a commercial goal. Does the lights have to be, because when we put a lot of projects in town, that planning board had to be,
Right.
but I didn't know, it's not residential, but it's commercial, but I'm so be surprised that any commercial buildings being built in town doesn't have to follow that.
Well-
Regulation, but I did the type, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, those are the guidelines, right?
We have guidelines.
Right, those were the guidelines, and they were good, they made a lot of sense. But I think there are other factors such as, the school's parking lot, their lights stay on all night. Some of the downtown buildings, their lights stay on all night. Do we need that, or would it be better to have, motion sensors? So I think that's all part of it. I don't know, a ton about it, but I know it has been talked about and it has been brought up to me. So I just thought that might be something we want to explore, because I do believe it's something that enough people are interested in.
Is the process though that we simply tell them that we're supportive of them putting something together? And they bring that to us for review, or what's the?
Well, if it's a citizen petition, but I think ideally, it would be good to have somebody, at least one person on the select board to work collaboratively and be able to bring it back to the select board, who could offer ideas, suggestions, improvements and so forth, so that we would be, able and willing to support it at town meeting, because there have been times when we've maybe not been supportive of a particular bylaw. And I'm hearing about this dark skies bylaw, that there is growing interest in it.
Do other towns have them?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, I guess I'd be in favor of doing the research. Yes, I'm in favor of the bylaw yet, but I'm definitely in favor of looking at one, because it could be successful, it could be a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't think of all the pros and cons.
Exactly.
But it'd be interesting to know, but I guess, yeah, I have no problem saying we're gonna look at it over next year.
I think there's like the. Light pollution, like kind of, I think a big part of it is just like getting the lights like pointed down,
right,
that's
right.
to the ground.
That's what we were talking about, is the.
And then the challenge becomes, when, and so if you're trying to light a large area, it's more cost effective to like have lights higher up that have a broader like throw to them. And so then they're harder to shroud, right? So that's where it starts getting some of the light pollution from. So
Right.
it's not always as simple either as just replacing the light bulb with, or the fixture itself, even whether.
To the wrong spot.
Or you need more lights, so I think. For new developments and things like that, it probably makes like sense, because you can bake it in, but I think it's probably more challenging
For
for
retrofit, yeah.
retrofit, but doesn't mean it's impossible, it just means that they have to be planning to make those changes and.
I think there also has to be some, real understanding of what the different conflicts, where they are, what they'll come up and what they mean. So, with the new town hall, all the lights that we're putting on the exterior of the building are dark sky compliant. But it's not just about the lights themselves, the fixtures themselves being dark sky compliant, it's operation. When are they on? Are they on all the time at night for security purposes, or are they only on because they get tripped by a motion sensor. How does that interact with the lights that are on in the DPW yard adjacent to town hall? Those have to be on pretty much all the time for security reasons. So it's identifying what the challenges are and making sure that we can get to some level of comfort with how we do the best we can in the environment that serves everybody's purposes. So I think dark side compliance, especially in a community like this, that values.
You can always have exceptions too.
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
like, you know, you don't want like people just like the light pollution thing, because they're not thinking about it, being cheap about it, versus like needing exceptions, I think is.
Well, I think a lot of people, residentially don't think about the consequences of these big, like 9,000 watt LED lights that, you know, make
Like-
neighbors feel like they're living in Times Square. Do you really need that, right?
Right.
Can you have something that's, oriented down? Can you have something that's, motion activated? And I think those are reasonable questions to bring the community in on. How can we, and maybe it's because people don't really think about it, right? So it might be a
Yeah.
good conversation.
I'm in favor of investigating it as well, and like seeing if there's like what a pathway like would look like to getting, and they have like certifications and stuff you can get into this, there's like. Dark sky compliance, like tenant certifications, I know there's. Well, I have like out in like southwest is actually where it's.
Flagstaff,
Yeah.
dark sky,
Yeah.
because of the observatory right there. And it is, it's great. I mean, they've worked on a lot of those projects and she'll bake that into that.
It's kind of cool, you see the stars a lot better too.
So Rosie, you were talking about having a representative from the select board participate in that?
Or we could do it.
We,
The select board would have the
yeah.
conversation.
Right.
about
Well, I
the
think,
dark sky stuff?
yeah,
There's a lot
Indiro,
of,
I'm sorry, I was gonna say Indiro had offered to come in and talk about what she's discovered so far. She's pretty, careful researcher and she would have a lot of good information. I'm sure she'll have other towns that have dark skies, the benefits, you know, challenges.
Which what board or committee would bring that to?
HEIC, Environmental Impact Committee. I mean, it's an environmental impact, like pollution is environmental.
so I've talked to Ann and Kathy also, they're planning this little group. And my understanding is that they were interested in working sort of separate from the HOC initially to put some stuff together, but, yeah. Very supportive of it as well, exploring it and looking at what we could do. And, you know, so they put on a great program over at the library a month or so ago.
Hmm.
Very interesting. I mean, I think a lot of times when people think about dark sky, they think of sort of these big, like, expensive things that need to happen, and the guy did a really good job of sort of outlining, there's lots of really easy, low hanging fruit kind of things that people just need to think about when they're dying.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So those are two things I thought would be, community-wide projects that would be helpful, so.
What do you got?
That's your,
No, come here. Lead another camera.
my biggest really are Patton Park Master Plan implementation. I know that there's some work that's happening this year, but I'd like to see that continue to be a priority for us moving forward, to looking to the future of moving on to phase 2 and getting that plan, keeping that plan timely. Also, downtown sidewalk improvements and implementing that plan that is out there right now for downtown stuff. My understanding is that that's with Tim potentially.
Yep, we
There's
do,
some costs.
yeah, we have, I'll take you, we've got, we're further along with the planning and design of that, and we've tried once unsuccessfully to seek for, grant money to help. So we could continue to improve the plan and apply to state and try to get MassWorks money to help with that, because it's a large scale project.
Yeah, fair. That's one I think would be good to keep on the schedule and keep moving forward as well.
Yeah, I think for the downtown, if there's work projects there, but also just general, even if we can't get the grant money. Around like some areas where I think we know where some of the problem spots are, but out on like Asbury, the new developments going in, up there, just like there's no connector back to this section of Asbury. And then there's there also is a project happening,
Dude,
right?
sidewalk, yeah.
Yeah.
Extension.
Highland, is that where it is?
Yeah, it's, that's, we're working to get that shepherded through, Conscom right now. That's where that's at. So, so we have to get the,
Yeah,
NOI, kind of file with them and abbreviated NOI, file with them and get.
I wouldn't
and
be.
move forward.
I wouldn't be opposed to us breaking this up either. Saying like, let's do this in chunks, like even if we're self-funding, smaller percent, like portions of it and I'd be open to the idea of putting that in the budget and bringing it to ATM in the spring, even if we don't get grant money. I know it's like we've been successful at in the past, but I do think that it's important for the health and well-being for people to be able to get around safely. Number of times I saw little kids on bikes, like sort of around up on Asbury, and you all probably see it too. It's working out for it. So,
So that was for road sidewalks and Penn Park kind of review. It seems like, feels like right now we're
I was
talking about all that together.
Sidewalks, I was
Everything.
tacking
Yeah.
on.
Everything.
I was tacking on sidewalks, I think it's a
I
good
think
thing.
it's three things, it's downtown, it's sidewalks and it's.
I vote sidewalks.
Yeah, sidewalks. Yeah, sidewalks.
That's been Bill's.
Although we did get that email, which I appreciated your response on all the sidewalk improvements that we are actively doing, because I wasn't aware of some of those, which is great. I think we're doing some.
We're doing, we continued, it's been both on the goals since I got here, and it's been on the capital plans since I got here. We do some every year, we're trying to do more. We added a sidewalk out along Essex Street, connecting Forest Street to School Street, which is great for walkability for those families. Moms trying to walk their kids to the park on School Street from Forest Street, no longer have to take their lives into their hands. It's actually a sidewalk to walk on. That's an improvement, and it wasn't there. We're gonna continue to do those things. So, yeah, the completion of the quote unquote loop between Hamilton and one of the downtowns along Highland Street is in planning stages, and we need to get Conservation Commission approval to move forward with that, and we've got some money to do the designs, and then we'll have a recommendation for getting the sidewalk built and the crosswalks that will complete that loop. We have commitment from the larger of the two developers doing affordable housing out on Upper Asbury to, for some money to help us make a connection from the Asbury Street project down to the intersection of Highland and Asbury Street. And the project that we ask for every year for state money and keep getting told no, is the intersection of Asbury and Highland because of the kind of the wonky way those two streets interact. So we will continue that. My suspicion is that they failed at the state level to get real traction because the state looks for, return on investment. How many lives am I affecting with this? But when we can show that we're gonna have 54 new units of affordable housing out at Asbury, that some of it is gonna need to walk towards the center of town, and we're already building the sidewalk where I'm hoping we'll have a little bit better luck when we apply this year. So
Yeah.
we'll keep.
I think having like, kind of like, if we don't get the money, we do this little chunk
Yeah.
of work, right? And it sounds like we're already doing some of that kind of stuff, but just keeping
Yeah.
that stuff moving, then if we do get the money, then.
And keeping people aware of the fact that we're doing it too.
It sounds like summarize, want a plan of all the projects in town. And prioritize them or compartmentalize and say, okay, we can only do, you can chunk it out, it's not just from here to here. It's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, so I think a graphical plan of like all the projects we want in town, so we can help to develop a priority. And that chunk it out year after year, so we can at least do it year after year, certain amount, right? Kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I'm just building on what Leo was saying, of like, I just didn't want it to be an all or nothing thing.
Right.
Like, well, we didn't get the grant money, it's like, well, it's.
No,
So was there a problem though too with the grant and going to them with? Because it doesn't sound like we've completed the cost assessment for the downtown improvement project.
So there's two parts. The downtown improvement project was originally envisioned as an entire project that included the town streets, Railroad, Willow, and that piece of Asbury between Willow and Bay Road, and then Bay Road. Bay Road's a state road. The town really can't make the investment in actually fixing that piece of the road. So we've applied, I think we're pretty close to getting an estimate of what the cost will be to do the town streets. But we also want the state to buy it. We want the state to give us some money, but we can certainly phase it and do it without the state. But we also want the state to commit to doing their piece of our project. And even if they make some amendments to it to fit into the way they do roads, we at least want them to address it and fix it up to make it consistent so we can identify the downtown as our downtown. So that, we don't have control of the state side of that number, but we have a pretty good estimate at this point of what the town side of the number is gonna be. The longer it takes us, the more it's gonna cost. To phase it will cost more money, but I agree with you, it's better to start doing it than not do it, so. We've already tried to do some things. We've tried to identify, what the parking requirements would be. We've updated the parking regulations on those streets in downtown. We've already, to help with the business district and make sure that there's the ability to use Railroad and Willow intersection and a little bit more of a community friendly way. We've had National Grid drop power from the top of the pole to the base so that we can actually provide power to street vendors and things when we want to close it off and use it. And that, so those are all things that came out of that downtown plan that we've already started to do. So we've already got some of those things checked out, but the bigger ones, fixing sidewalks, making them all uniform. We've got handicap accessible ramps and crosswalks in most of that area, but some of them have failed and we got to make some improvements.
They get
Some of
chewed
that.
they get chewed every winter by the.
Yeah,
by the-
so- So, there's definitely more we have to do, but we're kind of zeroing in on the number, but it's a little bit of a moving part until you go into bid, it's gonna change, so. There you go. John's been looking at our phone for the last couple of years too.
Then what do you got?
Okay. I'd like to potentially, work on a capital planning policy. So that we have something as a select board to lean on,
So you have two things.
we do already.
You already have a local select board policy that established the capital committee and gave them a charge. And then you have a capital planning policy as a financial policy that was adopted by the select board years ago. And we use that to outline the whole process for assessing capital on an annual basis. So we do have a capital planning policy. We have a 5-year plan. What we haven't been as great about is amplifying the capital plan every year. The capital plan, the 5-year plan gets discussed by the capital committee and the FinCom. We are all kind of aware of the projects on it, but every year when we go to town meeting, we tend to simplify it.
It's already been, watered down.
We tend to simplify it and just go with what we're asking for that year. So we've got to do a better job of making sure people know what's on the 5-year plan. I agree with that assessment. We need to improve that and have the whole
Maybe
plan
it's-
accessible.
Maybe in terms of our policy reviews.
Yeah,
We move that up the top. I'd like to have that. Also kind of dovetail with, because usually. FinCom team is also doing a roll up of what the 5-year look ahead is. And I would like to have them kind of involved, if that's possible, in reviewing the capital planning policy. Some of the things that I would like to see in there kind of is like getting to, and it depends on like what types of capital improvement project it is. They're gonna go by different standards, there'd be different standards bodies or organizations, but trying to standardize that so that we are, in a habit of every so often doing facilities or infrastructure conditions assessments to say, what's the current state of repair? What's coming up next? So we have just more of a data-driven approach to some of that, and that might be that, and some of that stuff might be able to be done by the DPW or other departments, but if they don't know how to do it to that level and that standard, like making sure that we have that data. And I think about like the town hall, like I would love to have that facilities condition assessment done on that 5, 6, 7 years so that it's like we're staying ahead of any issues before they arrive. 'Cause you know how it goes, right? It's like there's like one little crack or one little leak, and then that starts to have all these downstream impacts. That we've just made this big investment, it'll be low dollars to stay on top of it versus. You know, but everything reaches the end of its useful life eventually, but the state of repair that it is in, the longer it will go, right? And so that's where this is coming from, is just kind of having a better picture. That's somewhat unified to an industry standard as well. And that we have some health checks and some spot checks I don't know what the appropriate cadence is, if it's every 5, 7, or 10 years, probably depends on the piece of infrastructure and how durable it is. You know, versus things that are just out in the weather all the time. You know, big meeting.
Sorry, just to jump in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it is constant, the thing of like, oh, you guys aren't keeping up on the repairs of these things, and then having this ability to say, we assess these every year, we prioritize what those things need to be repaired is going to help go along with towards, I mean.
With that messaging, right? Right, you go to town hall and say, hey, these are the 5 things I'm gonna vote on. If it gets voted down, then no one's gonna say, well, why do you do this? Well, we put it in front of you. Here's the money to do it. If you don't want to appropriate the funds, then we're not gonna do it and prioritize something else instead, but. Right.
So unifying that capital planning, having some industry standards, so it's basically taking that policy, taking it around to a few of the committees, you know, and I'm, you know, putting my hand up to help with that, I guess is the short of it. So I'm gonna just set myself a goal, but I want to work with, I know the Capcom, you know, reporting to you, Joe, like it's sort of something that fighting for work on.
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, the Capcom. The capital processes. That we have in place currently, and I'm not disagreeing with you. So the town has a pavement management plan that gets updated every so often. I don't know exact cadence, but I know Tim spends money, consultant money, highway money every year, every couple of years to get it updated, and we have it assessed. You know, we're not extremely well staffed. We have 65 people across all departments in the town, full-time equivalents. Him and his crew do the best they can on that. We have him and Pete Cobb, the assistant director, trying to maintain an assessment of state of repair of all of our buildings. They're the ones constantly working to try to keep them open and maintained and everything going. They do try to update it, the 5-year capital plan every year. So sometimes things move along up and down the 5 years. We might have something that's predicted to be in the 5th year of the plan this year, and then by the time we get to review it next year, something's gone wrong. We've noticed a deterioration, so we move it further up the plan and closer and swap things out. We do try to use consultants for that stuff. We have a number of consultants on board to look at our systems, to look at energy efficiency of our buildings, as I said, the pavement management plan. So we're trying to do all those things. You want us to do more of it, we can. Just costs money. You'll have to hire more outside, and it just costs money we haven't had, but we can look at doing more of that. The current process is that every year starts with the existing 5-year plan. This is what we did last year. We're starting to meet in the summer, say this is what we just approved, and this is the plan to get that stuff taken care of over the course of the next year. And then looking ahead, we're gonna add a 5th year here, and we're gonna look at all the projects here, and what else do we need to add to the plan, and where do they all flow in? This capital committee members, representatives appointed by you, meet with the different department heads to assess the level of priority for all the different things on the plan, and they make recommendations to us on what they think the priorities are. Based on what we have available to spend, we reprioritize that list. For the most part, most years that we've done this since I've been here, we follow the capital committee's recommendations almost completely. There are always some changes. There was a year that they wanted us to put $125,000 planning process under capital committee, under capital. I said, that's not a capital item. So we found $125,000 for it, but it wasn't on the capital plan. That's a difference. There was a year that they recommended that we only buy 1 police cruiser, but our cadence is to buy 1 police cruiser every year, and every 3rd year we buy 2. That keeps the fleet maintained. That year we were on track to need 2. We recommended that we keep on track and maintain the vehicle policy, that keep the police having vehicles that move. So there are always some little things that come up, and then that gets reviewed by the FinCom and the select board before we put it before the town meeting. So we are doing it. Unfortunately, nobody goes to the capital committee meetings, and we don't, again, in terms of our inability or lack of ability to this point to explain to the community what it is we're doing all the time and communicate out what we're doing. But we outline the whole process in the GFOA budget that we've been producing for the last 3 years. It's right there, it tells everybody this is how we do our capital planning. And the meetings are all public.
Yeah.
But we don't do a good enough job saying, this is the 5-year plan this year. This is what we're focusing on for the current fiscal year. And ask for input. So we can do more of that with the communications person coming on. That's part of the, strategic communications going forward, and making sure people are aware of what our needs are.
I think, what I'm driving at is around like the conditions assessment piece and like unifying that so that we have a full picture regardless of like how we, like which ones we move up to the top priority list.
Yeah.
And then like that's the stuff that gets funded that year because that's what's in like the level.
Oh, you
Start with
talk about,
budget.
take it, list all our town properties, do an assessment of each property with a maintenance plan.
And that way it's just sort of like, hey, like, you know what, that one didn't make the cut this year,
But we know,
but we know
Yeah.
next year it's gonna be, it won't be that number.
we don't have that many properties to do that on, but.
No.
And it's just,
Oh.
and I think that it sounds like some of this stuff is happening and that some of the information is available. And I think what I'm asking for is unifying it and making sure that we have that picture that like allows us to look out, 5, 10 plus years, right?
Deferred maintenance program for our town. owned
And renewal, right? It's like a deferred maintenance and renewal aspect. Some of it's gonna reach the end of its life and needs to be replaced. And so and for each one of the pieces of infrastructure, there'll be some other standards or organization body that says, this is how you do it, to this level, like of detail and.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing or saying that we don't need that. I agree. I just don't want anybody that's watching this or watches it on HWCAM next week to think that we aren't doing, kind of a capital planning process. Are there needs still within that process? Absolutely. Happy to take those on, so.
Yeah,
Because
this is more this is not the capital plan, this is the deferred maintenance program, knowing that. we
And renewal.
And renewal. Well, but it's part of a deferred maintenance program.
That was my.
What else you got?
One second. My third one, I did email into Joe, because it's a bit heady. Tom, why don't you go?
that was easy.
I'll come back to it, let's see.
Give us a tidbit, what is it titled?
I mean, now.
In case it's on my list. I don't wanna bring it up if it's on my list.
Well, so it's basically taking the 2024 town master plan and then taking some of the goals and objectives from that around protect, provide, grow. They had recommendations in there of some next steps to take. So it'd be basically putting some more meat on the bone, putting some economics against it to say, okay, you've made all these recommendations, these highlighted these opportunities. What is the math like actually work out to be? And what I'm driving at with this, especially around kind of like capital planning and looking at, well, what do we need in terms of infrastructure? Are there ways for us to increase our revenue base? And so I was looking at that document and thinking, what are the creative opportunities here? So it's in that vein. And so my idea is to kind of have an economic development plan that marries with the master plan from 2024 and says, okay, but that's where I need insight in terms of like, how would that come together? Do we need a subcommittee for it? Who's best positioned to help with that? And it's much longer range, like it's kind of like, but.
I have one that dovetails on that, so.
Okay.
Well, we can,
All right.
but I think it's a good idea, but I think it's, I think we need to rely on the state and other people to help us with that, because I think they do that, I think that's part of the.
That they'll provide support.
I mean, there is
There's an economic.
economic development as part of the state, and I think they would be happy to come out here and give us ideas.
That's why I like to kind of like base it off the master plan, because that seemed like it was a
Right.
pretty detailed body of work as well.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense to dovetail them together.
Yeah, all right, so that was my big one, but
Okay.
I was also running out of gas. I was like, I'll let you do.
No, I mean, good, yeah, no, it's correct. I had the same type of idea.
The only additional item, in addition to some that I already mentioned. I think we should have or initiate another conversation with Wenham and have like a realistic conversation about regionalization. I know there's politics behind it. I know there's a lot of history. I know there's been, it's been talked about before, but at least getting like some sort of review of like what is currently shared services, what is like, you know, independent services and what realistically could be, you know, molded into one or shared in some way. I know we already talked about, you know, integrating water earlier, Joe, and I think there's opportunity. I know everyone saw it last year with the budget. Or this current year with the budget and, you know, trying to put that together, knowing that, you know, with the lack of state funding we're coming in and the federal funding, like, we're all struggling with budgets. And I think we really need to realistically look at, you know, where can we have cost savings around, you know, different staffing models and public safety and all these different things. So, I mean, I think it's worth initiating that conversation again.
Number one on my list of that, so yes, agree with you. There's some opportunities coming up for that to be a favorable discussion,
Yeah, I think so.
so.
Okay.
But just losing staff and one of them that may be able to, I mean, it's still a long-term play, but people retiring, time in retirement.
Yeah.
Maybe I had one other one.
Nope,
You know, that was the only one I did. Yeah,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
go ahead.
FinCom are here, but I haven't made it the last two meetings, but the last one I did make it to, they were doing some goal setting in that team as well. I think it'd be important for us to look at our goals and also collect any goals from that they may have, but they're also here tonight. There's interest to.
Yeah, I was gonna go around the room actually after we were done. Yeah, because these people are here, so I want to hear what they're here for, so.
All right.
But so, yeah.
That was it. It was like, I just want to make sure that we dovetail some of our stuff with what FinCom.
Yeah, I was only gonna go around the room and get input. Anything else?
No.
Good. I had 5 things written down, but they're kind of all similar to what we talked about, but one, regionalization. With more, we need to do more and think about what happens next year, 5 years, 10 years, but I think that's the success of our community is to be more unified and to reduce costs and efficient and improve efficiency, right? I think it's a win-win, right?
Right.
Number 2, it's been on here for a long time, but we haven't really prioritized it, but the ambulance thing, like, I don't know if that's something that we wanna do any one of these years, to figure out if it's worth making money and it's worth having services to our residents by having, so I'm not sure if something we wanna put on there, something to look at over next year. I know Wenham does it, and we think they make money, but they haven't told us if they're making money or not, but. Yeah, they won't share you their numbers, but you're working on it.
Because they have their own ambulance service.
Yeah.
Ambulance.
Yeah,
They have a basic like support ambulance, a BLS unit that is staffed completely with volunteers.
so I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but we've talked about it, it's an opportunity to raise revenue, maybe,
I've heard a rough number floating around,
so
75,000 something a year or something like that.
That's it?
1,000, yeah.
it's not huge, but anyways, it's,
Something.
but it's a service too.
Yeah.
The service you make money on, so it's kind of a win-win, but so anyways, I'm not sure where we're doing it, we have a lot of things on our list, but. That's one, Number 2 is, we lost our
Who's
waste.
number 3?
That's, well, number 1, he said it, was the regionalization.
Yeah.
So number 1 would be ambulance. Number 2 is the waste recycling committee. We lost that committee a few years ago. It seems to be a big deal now between compost and and it's all sort of falls on you, Joe, so I'm not sure if it's worth reconstituting a waste recycling committee to sort of take some of the heavy lifting. So they can do all the work behind the scenes and come to good recommendations, but if you're happy doing it, we don't need another committee, that's fine, but.
So, I mean, just to remind everybody, waste and stuff was in the bailiwick of the Hamilton Environmental Impact Committee when we organized this charter. That was supposed to be one of the things that they looked at. The charter actually calls out for them to, assess and review anything that impacts the environment and make reports back to the select board. So if you're looking for that, I don't necessarily know you need it on the committee, you just need to ask that committee to spend some time looking at the waste if you want.
And they vocalized a bit when we were looking at our budget opportunities where I save money and everything, because they were here.
Yeah.
When we were planning for the town meeting, and they seemed still plugged into that,
Cause you had on your spreadsheet, you had the trash contract.
That was, cause
That was me, I-
Lee said it,
That's,
I have that. It's gonna be signed
Yeah.
likely tomorrow,
Right,
so
it's gonna be
signed tomorrow,
So how
so.
long of a contract is it?
I believe it's a 3-year it's a 3-year contract with 2 additional years.
Okay, all right, so that, I just wanna know, what's the thing, so we can sort of say, okay, maybe over next year, we see if there's. Cause we kind of have a lost conversation on it, we're doing a great job, but once again, we're not thinking about the next thing. We got sort of the first town to have composting and doing the stuff, but now we sort of have it, like what's being more proactive, we don't fall behind, we always wanna be leading from the front, right?
Yeah.
The third one is based on what you were talking about. So we went to a thing at New England Biolabs where the state came with their, economic development person came and talked about certain things. One of the things that they offered was they could come to a town like ours and say, and establish us as a biotech ready community. Which means that biotech companies would look, they're looking to go in a suburb, they would look at a list like, oh, Manchester by the Sea or Ipswich or Essex is biotech. We're not currently a biotech. I don't know if we want to be a biotech, ready, but it's one of the many services that the Economic Development Committee will do. And so I think it's worth having them come over next year and speak with us either at a board meeting or one-on-one or meet with Joe, but we should understand like how the state can help support our economic development in an appropriate way for the town of Hamilton, the character of Hamilton. So it's kind of dovetails on what you're talking about.
Yeah, and that was, sort of some of these. The New England Biolabs one, I think, is a good example too of like where it had been old estate land, but it's like I don't know that. I think there's one road where you can almost catch a glimpse of it, but it doesn't really disturb like the rural fabric of.
It's a big enough piece of property where
Yeah,
it's lost back there.
and so those are some of the opportunities they talked about in the master plan as well.
We have a great estate bylaw that doesn't get used, but
I think the Great State bylaw is not easy to use. It doesn't get used because it's not easy to use.
So, yeah,
If
some of the
it
stuff,
were, somebody would have come in and taken advantage of it.
right,
exactly. And there's a lot of estates that this town you don't realize exist. There's many, many hundreds of acres. So yes, I think it's worth looking at. I just don't know how we attack it and how we make it measurable, but I think it's worth looking at economic development in an appropriate way without ruining the fabric and the character of Hamilton, but maximizing or improving some of our revenue
and
Right,
in easy ways.
right, and one of the things that they were talking about was the fact that,
I'm sorry, Rosemary was there too, sorry.
right, what makes one town, biotech
Yeah.
ready doesn't necessarily mean the next town will be in the same vein.
That's
So
right,
they,
right.
so it
Unique
sort of
different things,
depends,
different
right, what facilities do you have available? And I was absolutely blown away by that facility, Biolabs. We had a tour, it was just amazing. But we talked about a lot of the logistics that are required to keep that up and running. I mean, they have a lot of chemicals that they use there, and they have their own decontamination pod on site. They decontaminate water, so they really have a very sophisticated system that wouldn't necessarily transfer to a smaller town like Hamilton. I don't know, but it's just interesting. But they did say,
It's privately funded, right? It's not.
right,
System isn't funded by.
self-contained.
It's also privately funded, so if you found a company that came here and went to privately fund the system,
Right.
it could exist in Hamilton. We're not gonna be able to do it, but it's $1 million facility, right, just for one tenant, but
yeah.
they can fund it, cause they're a big
I
company,
don't
but.
know enough about the industry. Is there like a growing need for biotech right now? I feel like in Boston.
No, but it's not-
Seaport,
it's
there's
not-
like a lot of like just empty labs.
Yeah, science, technology, ready community, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
or it goes in cycles and it's not now, but
Yeah.
maybe in
Just-
5 years back, but.
could
Yes,
be
it's
some kind of
something.
R&D and a lot of this stuff has become, it's like with CRISPR and all these other things, they're doing so much more like. Simulated first before they even go to a bench, right? So but the facilities are all getting smaller is a big part of what's happening. It's like, so what used to take like huge teams and giant labs, it's like now it's like we're 2 or 3 people, right? So, but they.
Data is what you need.
There's probably no data centers in Hamilton.
Can you imagine?
Oh, I'm advocating for that.
I'm making a recommendation for that on my last day.
Yeah, I'm not,
Put that on the goal.
I'm not advocating for that.
But I like that idea of bringing them in and letting them just sort of give us.
I mean, I think we haven't done anything with that, so we sort of let it come to us, and I think it's important that we sort of be proactive with and say, what could we do here
Right,
that could benefit us, but not negatively impact us?
right, and they were amazingly creative, so I definitely.
Right, and it's a success, right? It's a huge success story there, and how can we build on that, right? Just right down the street, nobody would even know, the sign is,
Yeah, but it's been
The
there
sign
for
is as
2 days.
big.
Yeah, but it's been there for 2
20
days.
years,
I mean, it's not-
whatever I'm saying, but.
it wasn't an overnight
Right.
success.
Right, but we're long-term residents here, we're gonna be here for 20 years, so.
Absolutely.
And then the last one I had was, just on the streets and sidewalks, up at the dead end streets, I just wanna over the next year, I wanna resolve our 2 dead end streets that just look like. They don't look great, they're not, I wanna beautify our dead end streets and maybe look at other, once again, we wait till people come to us with the problem. And be maybe proactive, and look at any opportunities to do.
So it's Sharon Road and what's the other one?
Past, on the way to, which off of Highland.
It's not Bucking, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not really dead end now, it's not really dead end, but we dead ended one of the legs of the street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Through
really,
street, it's a through street, but we
Turned it.
turned it.
so that
50
people wouldn't go flying down there. 80
Yeah,
mile
right.
an hour. I think, yes, I agree with that. I mean, it's a great concept, but it is really nice, so.
I do think the Sharon Road one will come to a natural, resolution because we're talking about the sidewalk. And
Right.
so the minute we run the sidewalk, then we're gonna have to kind of change it. Right now, as Tim said, explained, you have basically all the drainage off that road is quote unquote country drainage.
Mhm.
The minute we put a sidewalk there, we're gonna need to, account for where the water goes and make sure it gets to the right side of the road. So that'll include some things that'll wind up improving that whole, that closed street. And closing, and essentially closing it from there.
That's good.
So,
Yeah, I agree. with that.
so
Very-
Joe, what I would suggest is that we've made a list of bunch of things.
Can I have one?
Who took the best?
Can I have
note?
one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm in
Wow.
the room too.
This
Yeah.
took the best notes. So we'll have
Okay.
Zoom give me my AI version of notes and then balance it against what notes I took.
Certain amount we're gonna add to them, our notes.
But I just wanted to add, Ben briefly mentioned it when he talked about economic development, but really, you guys had a message from the planning board chair maybe a month and a half ago now, basically talking about implementation of the 2024 master plan in general. What does that look like? Do you want a committee? Do you want to be staff directed? We would like some direction from you on how you want to do that. I agree with the planning board chair. We need to have somebody looking at the 2024 master plan, implementation plan, ensuring that it gets included in our budget cadence and our capital cadence and how we look at building ourselves out each year. And you guys have to identify what that is gonna be. So I think I mentioned earlier, you might want to have a joint meeting with the planning board at some point this summer to talk about patent homestead and patent zoning. And the master plan should also, that's weird because it's plugged in.
So,
We lose.
loose.
I just want to wait, so maybe it,
Yeah, you're good.
okay, so, my goal would be to have you give us some direction on what you want that to look like. Because it's not just the economic development parts of the master plan, but really all the master plan. How do we prioritize what we attack each year and bring it to life?
I think it's good, yeah, and it's on here, it's on this list, so.
I like the joint meeting idea. I think that was one of the things that the chair advocated for.
Yeah, we do all this good work, right, Ben, and then we don't go.
A lot of it, it's a good.
And it's a great read.
It's
We got the Patton Park one,
Yeah.
which we try to do, pick away a few things every year at Patton Park, but the low hanging fruit, but yeah, we can't.
Yeah, and I think. Bring back to my email here. But I'd be in favor, yeah, let's have the joint meeting with them. I think I would advocate to have a committee. And maybe it's a combination of the boards and staff. It might be also appropriate, like long-term thinking here as well, like around this economic piece of having some people who can put some numbers and some specific policy recommendations. It's like, if we already have a great estates policy, if that were to be activated, what would the economic benefit be to the town and to our revenue, to unburden the residences? But sort of like, what changes have to go with it, right? So that way there's a roadmap and some kind of like step-by-step things that can be implemented, right? Because I'd be surprised if there's that skill set hidden among them. Like, this would be a big chunk of work, right? To do that type of
We'd
analysis.
probably be looking at hiring some people to help with that.
Yeah, so that's like where I feel like, if we were able to form a committee and put in a request, for next year's budget to get such an entity and to support those efforts to help prioritize, we get best kind of bang for buck in terms of making changes if we need to, if we want to consider these things.
But let's use our pre-services first for the state.
State, yeah, gotcha. State and the, even semi-free, the regional planning entity and metropolitan area planning council can give us some assistance with that as well,
Yeah.
for lower cost, if not no cost.
Here, anything you wanna, on notes?
I think the biggest topic, from my standpoint is water. And I think we should pull in members of the public, and form some sort of public informed committee to support Joe and you guys. I think water is financially could be biggest challenge we have over the next 15 to 20 years. And I think the energy we put into it needs to bubble up. So, we talked about our last meeting, I think. Chris Wilson's been tracking what Joe's been doing, what Tim's been doing. I just think we need to raise our game relative to water. So that's probably the number one topic that I personally have. We've been talking about it at FinCom, but we haven't really done much other than listen anymore. Last time Senator Tar was here at the community house 15, 18 months ago, there was 150 people in the community house dying to hear what he had to say. And basically, he just said, here's what we've been doing, but not what we're gonna do. So I just, to me, that's a big, huge topic, and I think it's a key to almost everything else you're talking about here today, is water. And at a minimum, I think we need to demonstrate to the town what we're doing. Yeah, so, and that comes into communications. That's my soapbox item.
Yeah.
I know Scott, he's recently joined the FinCom, he's got some points as well.
Thanks, John. So you're thinking that kind of like there's like, we're gonna like think about it in two parts. There's the stuff that's on our side of the fence in terms of. Whether it's the treatment, pumping, storage and distribution, there's that piece of it.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's the
Second source.
the second
Sourcing-
source part.
Sourcing and infrastructure.
Yeah.
What about the potential reservoir that they're talking about, Topsail,
Right.
$380 million? Okay, is that real? Is that something we'd ever do?
That'll be more than that.
Whatever. I just think we need to raise our game relative to water
Yeah.
in general. And we
We can
need,
have visibility on options from
Oh,
the
yeah.
source side.
yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of it has to do with communication.
Yeah.
Well, but anyway, I just think it's the biggest, it's much bigger than the school buildings from my standpoint. I mean, we need to invest money there, but I just, how at risk are we?
Right, we do risk assessment, right?
So, that's my topic.
Thanks, John.
Go ahead.
Right, thank you, just a, quick comment and a question. I would strongly, support and encourage any effort by the select board to address the possibility of e-bike, regulations by town law, by, law or otherwise. Just about a month ago, Robin and I were down near Patton Park, in the evening and saw two kids, no helmets, dark clothes, no lights on their bikes, engaged in reckless behavior on the tennis courts and also on the town crossing. And I think this is just an accident waiting to happen, and we're talking about the possibility of serious injury or death by kids here. So I really hope that there could be some forward motion on the e-bike issue. The other question relates to downtown sidewalk. Again, my wife and I have been concerned about the aesthetics of downtown for a long time. Very glad that finally those rusty bollards by the post office have been dealt with. And I think that the, downtown sidewalks on Railroad Avenue, even though they're not priority number one, are shabby and not worthy of a town of this caliber and history. So my question is, how much money would be involved ballpark to upgrade those sidewalks?
Well, it'd be part of a holistic plan for those streets, and it's on the order of $3 million.
But that's what Ben's talking about. Let's break into smaller pieces, see what we can do year by year.
Chip away at it, I don't wait for the $3 million to show up, but.
Yeah, what can you do? I mean, it's gonna be more money doing small pieces, but we gotta look at it, right?
Yeah, make that progress,
Right. Got it. Scott, what do you got?
Oh, thanks for asking. I think three things. I'm new to the FinCom, so, or we new to the FinCom, been on a long time ago. So I'm still catching up, like John brought up the point of water, and that it being potentially a large thing, but it's also, I think, very hard for us to understand what our options are and what potential timing is and what potential costs could be. So even for the FinCom to do its work, we need to work together with Joe and you to be able to develop what the message is and how we're gonna be able to finance things and how to communicate it to townspeople. For something that's needs to go on for a very long period of time. So, I volunteered in our group to help Chris, who was here earlier, listen to your water discussion. So that's one of them. The second is capital planning. I think, I would suggest that your capital planning policy is ready for an update. How it works is worth a close review. Does this generate what we want? Do taxpayers and voters know what our long-term plans are, what the implications are? I think it needs a lot of improvement. And the third is really in communications, as John was saying. Joe's talking about getting, I was a big advocate for getting that $50,000 to get a local media person to help. They can only do so much, but what are the messages of what we're trying to communicate over a long period of time on some of these big topics? So that, how is that getting educated to our townspeople in with some cadence to it? So we're not, FinCom's here to advise a meeting and, well, how do we make it not that, oh, people show up and we're going, but I didn't know what was going on. How do we help do that and provide a better cadence to it? So, but I'm new, I don't know all the things that FinCom is working on today, but I know those are some things I'll probably be involved in, helping and working with you.
You know, I mean, you hit on that, right? Water was the first one. We sort of talked about those things, like we need to have options and costs. We need to be able to have some real plans. Even if they don't happen, but we need to start putting them on paper and talking about them. We talked about that. We're doing policies right now, and Ben's gonna work on the capital planning policy. And the communication, yeah, I mean, I think, you still mentioned that the 50,000, I mean, once again, just to read what he said, because we already talked about that it's not just bringing the person on board, but their first month or 2 months gonna be developed what this plan is, and then bring it to us, not just. But they're not just social media, right? They're communications, right? So it's not just
social media.
Like, in my mind, it's communication as a town.
100%.
Right, okay. But yeah, no, all things that we wanna work on.
Thanks for asking.
No, thanks for coming. Anybody else? We missed anything? I have 2 other general questions and we're done with this.
So lots of information here tonight. Our next meeting is next Monday. There's no way I can have this ready for you Monday. The next meeting after that is July 20th. I will be in New Hampshire at a concert with my family, so I won't be ready to give you that on the 20th. Very Naked Ladies in Train for anybody who's asking. Can't wait to see it. Actually seen both bands play live in the past, but I'm looking forward to sharing the experience with my sons. So if it's okay with you, I can return, I can have this like second iteration with all the fields kind of filled out for you to review and make comment on and refine further at the first meeting in August.
What I would ask in the meantime is if you could send out the transcript.
Yeah.
And then we can sort of, in an organized
Okay.
manner, give you our comments to it.
Yep, okay.
Maybe don't put it throughout the transcript, maybe put it at the bottom. So Joe doesn't have to look everywhere for notes, but. So I wouldn't edit the transcript per se, but maybe just give your notes at the bottom so Joe can look at 5 paragraphs.
How will that coincide with the minutes?
The minutes for this meeting will, they'll,
They're different than.
we'll just pick up what had happened at this meeting and they'll do that and that'll be for you to vote on the record of this meeting. But to go forward, you'll review the notes as you see
Make sure
fit.
you're understood.
Just make sure you only send your notes to Bill and I. You don't share them with the whole group because we'll get into an OML violation. But if you share them to just me and Bill, Phil and I, or mostly me, can work on putting together that second iteration of this for you to review again as a committee in August.
As I have to, I can catch up with you afterwards.
Okay.
So I remember talking about it. Anybody else, Gary?
Barney's looking for somebody to be appointed to the planning board.
I think they're looking to appoint an associate member.
So that
So as soon as we get it, I'll get it to you, yeah. Yeah, I'll make sure we reach out and get that.
And I had some comments about recycling, just to have it on the topics, people notice at 10, so if Tim can be here at the next meeting, and we can, even not presume for 5 minutes, just. And just give people the opportunity to, so it's on the agenda, ask questions, get answers. We talked about it impromptu last time, so people weren't aware it was on the agenda.
What was the topic, sorry?
Just the recycling program and how it's gonna work, and people just have questions, and I think it's,
Just throw it in the.
we talked about it a little bit last week, but. I think I've had a lot of questions, so I think it's good to have Tim just answer them, but I don't wanna give the wrong answer.
Now, that could be a good handout, like the, trash committee did before. They gave us a
Yeah,
really,
why you can throw away with.
really user-friendly,
Yeah, still use it.
poster. Yeah, me too.
While we're talking about things from Monday night, if I can. Tom and Bill are up to help set the agenda. I'm out tomorrow, using the last of my vacation time for the fiscal year. But I'm in on Wednesday if you have time to do it. Or if any of you want to throw ideas to me before then, I can put together a draft agenda for Bill and Tom to review. I do want to ask the board's appetite to have an executive session, potentially with at least the chair of the ZBA and council.
We ready for that?
We've got I think we definitely need to have a conversation. We have been served with an appeal on the ZBA's decision, 957 Bay Road. And at the same time, there's been the start of a counter not counter, but a second application for different. So I think the board should be made aware of everything that's going on with the property and have some discussion, but it is pertaining to litigation, so we should have that in executive session. And
Does it need to be soon? Is there a time on the, to respond to
I think
the lawsuit?
I think it's better if we soon, because it may
But you suggest a
lead
time.
may lead us to next.
Can we do Zoom?
You don't have a lot, right, as of right now, you don't have, other than what you just mentioned. There's not a lot on
Okay.
that needs to happen in the regular agenda,
Right,
so you could start the meeting regularly at
do it
7,
Monday.
Monday at 7 o'clock, and then
That's fine.
the general meeting will start after.
Council will
city
be
closes. Was that?
Council will be on.
I'm gonna make sure that somebody from council there,
Yeah.
we were working with 2 attorneys, so.
Let's do it Monday. I found that. Everybody else good? Everybody around on Monday? And I think someone's not around on Monday, I thought. Oh, we're all here?
Oh, wait,
I'm good.
I'm on vacation. I'll be there. That was me. Sorry. So who's not? Oh, yeah.
Well, we will have a Zoom option if you want
I'm
to
on
zoom in.
vacation next.
We will have a Zoom option if you want to zoom in at least for the executive session, but we can
I'm
always
gonna
catch
be
up.
out in Western Mass.
He doesn't sound like you.
Oh, they don't have cell service, no.
No, like you think it's bad
I
here.
got a MiFi you can borrow.
There you go.
Satellite phone, got satellite phone? All right. I have a motion.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Do I have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.